3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Ganch Brothers podcast.
You missed the latter half. I'm not gonna blame you.
Wait, hold on.
It's Ganch, but no, we're not doing this again. We're not doing this again.
Round 2.
No.
I still think it's the most unfortunate thing that Urban Dictionary has defined Ganch as the skin between your balls and your butthole.
Yeah, but we kind of know how Urban Dictionary definitions are.
Honestly, the most tragic thing.
Hey, look, maybe I figure, right, there's only two things we can do with this. We can, pretend, that doesn't exist and, try to, make up a new name for Ganch Brothers. Or we can own it and then put it on all our merch. Just the skin between the butt and the ball.
Make it stop. So everyone and their mother's talking about this goddamn Sonic movie.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen the trailer.
I've seen the trailer, and I pretty much had. I think I had the initial reaction that everybody else kind of did when I saw it, which was like, ew. It's pretty gross.
That sounds about right. It's just about the right reaction.
Yeah.
He's too humanoid. He looks. They ruined the original appeal, I think, of what made Sonic interesting in the first place, which is this sort of cartoony, sort of charming sort of shape to him. And I think how Aaron from Game Grumps sort of explained that was Sonic's biggest draw. His design was just phenomenally made, because he's cool and colorful and very interesting to kids and adults. I think.
Well, here's the issue with that, and I want to agree, but I don't know if I can, because the reason I think that the people who animated that Sonic thing thought they could get away with it, probably, and didn't take 1 second to actually look at his original design, was the Pokemon movie. I mean, the Detective Pikachu?
What a strange coincidence for both of these movies to sort of happen very close in proximity.
But the thing about the Pokemon movie is, if you look at the Pokemon, it makes sense, right? It's a gritty Pokemon world, and, instead of there being, a nice Charizard, there's, a gross lizard Charizard, right? But, it feels appropriate.
Because there's always been humans plus these Pokemon creatures in the first place.
Whereas, I mean, did you watch the Sonic X
I did,
show when you were a kid?
It's not that weird.
They're human,
it's not that weird.
But the difference is it's all animated in that, nice, clean anime style, and not the gritty thing. But I think the way they made the Pokemon movie, or the Detective Pikachu movie at least, it felt appropriate, and all the designs I think they worked really hard on to not only be faithful to the original source material, but also take, okay, so, Charizard's based on a dragon, so he's going to be a reptile, and Pikachu's based on a mouse, so he's going to be a marsupial, so he has to have fur, right? Mm-hmm. And they thought about those things, and even though, if you look at some of the Pokemon, they kind of look gross, they look, appropriately gross, you know?
You want to come over here? I'm looking at some pics.
Alright. But, for Sonic, I mean...
Side dog.
He's got feathers, because he's
actual
a duck.
Feathers.
Yeah.
Some people think that Mewtwo looks kind of gross, because
he does, but, it makes sense.
Because he's an experiment.
Right, and, he looks like a little fetus thing, which is what Mew and Mewtwo kind of had their design based on, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't remember that Pokemon anywhere. oh, it's an Avipom or Apom or something?
I don't know. You're
those
the Pokemon professional.
Yeah, that is a freaky thing. And there's the Mr. Mime. I'm so glad he's in the movie. Glad they picked him. But, go to the Sonic movie and try not to get all the memes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the most famous picture
that's
of him.
the picture. So.
His mouth open.
Yeah. I know people have done like mock-ups of what they think the live-action Sonic should look like.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot of that actually.
Yeah, and I want to point out just the thing that bothers me the most is the eyes.
Right. It's not one big.
Yeah, because
thing,
normally
which is
Sonic has the like one gross like. It's weird, but it's like one gross eye, but it feels appropriate now because we've seen it so much.
Right.
And now they put his eyes on like, you know, the east and west side of his head so far apart that they need to send letters to each other, and then I don't know.
People don't like the human teeth. They're not a fan of that. I mean, what else are they supposed to give him though? Like fangs? I don't know.
I mean,
I'm not sure.
It's hard. I think
there's not much of a solution to it.
Yeah, but he's gross, right?
Yeah. But I don't know what you disagree about what Aaron said, because he said the original Sonic's design is like fantastic, and
no, it is. But I'm just saying that they could have put it in a movie without making it look gross.
Yeah, they absolutely could.
Like the Detective Pikachu movie. I think that's a good implementation of the Pokemon in real life, whereas this is a bad implementation. And it could be that it just doesn't follow the design of the original, but
it's possible, but
it also seems gross.
Yeah, even if I think there wasn't an original source material, I think it still is kind of uncanny the way it looks.
Yeah, the uncanny valley thing.
I haven't seen enough movies with like furry creatures in them with real humans. Let me think. What other?
Oh, so you're not a freak, huh?
Come on, dude. You can't just say that. Let me think. What?
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't remember many others.
There's like a live action version of like. Is there a live action version of like Bugs Bunny or something?
Try Roger Rabbit, but I think they might have just put normal.
Roger.
Yeah, okay, never mind. They just put the animated thing in it. Okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
So never mind. Yeah, I think nowadays they're trying to go for the more realistic look on it.
It's a good look. Original is such a good look.
Yeah, it's like it is very iconic and everything, but like if you look at this one, you know, the shoes are too small.
He's like strangely muscular around the legs.
The thing that bothered me a lot was when he was like stretching at the beginning of the trailer, and yeah, he's like hopping up on one foot, and I was like,
the gross. I was like,
no, not a fan of that at all.
Where's the stretch? Come on, guys.
Yeah,
That's
I think the whole Sonic movie is a stretch.
Oh, there it is. I don't know what's gonna come up. All right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that part bothered me a lot because I don't know, it just looks like the whole top half of his body is like
he's just naked.
Yeah, it just looks like a naked like 12-year-old or something, and that bothers me. So
things that change. It looks like they took away the skin around his arm that normally is there here.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a change. Where is he? I don't like how small his socks are.
Yeah, I think his feet need to be a lot bigger.
Right. And same for his hands. Like, Sonic's hands are massive.
Also, I don't think it looks like he has gloves in this. Yeah, it's like a furry, like, change to white. It's white fur and not gloves.
Oh, are you serious? I didn't notice.
Yeah, I didn't notice either until now.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, so that's a problem.
Holy moly.
I like how they have Jim Carrey playing Eggman.
There's so many memes of him. He's like, he's gonna carry the movie.
Yeah.
The weight of this entire movie is on his back.
Yeah. I hope they make him, like, I don't know, maybe a little bit, like, puffier, right? Because
that's just how Eggman is.
Yeah, because, I mean,
he's
the iconic look of Eggman is literally an egg.
He's rotund, and he's got this fat stash.
Or Dr. Robotnik. I don't know what they're going to do. I feel like they're going to choose Dr. Eggman just to piss everybody off more. Because, you know, half of them are
that's
like...
right.
I want to have Dr. Robotnik, even though it's a freaking name and nobody cares. But
Did they really not mention his name?
I I don't remember. That was not the focal point of the trailer for me.
What's that?
Can't wait to see the CGI furry bite into a chili dog for the first time. Oh boy.
I might watch it. I might go out of my way to actually watch it. Just so I can talk about it.
Well, I mean, they said they were gonna fix it, right?
They did.
So, and I think that's a good move. I mean, there's a line between like when you should just be doing your own project, and when you should like bow to public pressure.
Yeah, because there's an artistic vision and all that.
Right, but I feel like there was not really an artistic vision in this.
You think it was just a mistake?
No, I think and this is gonna sound a little cynical, but it's a cash grab, right? They're using everybody's favorite Sonic, and they know they can't make money off games anymore because the last 40 games have been terrible. So they're like, fuck it, we'll make a movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
It is incredible the amount of directions that Sonic has gone in, and none of them have been positive.
I was about to say, they've all been down.
At least recently. Oh, Sonic Mania, yeah.
No, well, that wasn't made by Sega.
It wasn't. It was made by fans that were hired by Sega.
Right.
I think it's how it played out.
So if Sega doesn't touch it, it could be pretty good, but the second they get their hands on it, yeah. But I don't think this. I'm pretty sure Sega didn't make, like, it's not making this movie. It's just giving the rights to someone who is.
But it seems like it's fallen on the lap of some strange directors for them to think that this was a good idea.
Yeah, and I don't know what they're trying to do. Like, maybe they're purposely like making it look different to redesign it, but like, people won't accept change. What the heck are you doing?
It's a good poster.
Strangely appropriate.
That's a nice transition to this sort of topic, but fan games are actually very interesting. Like, it's sort of set into motion, because the reason why fan games exist is because they're enormous fans of the original games.
Right.
And therefore go out of they're like the biggest fans, and therefore go out of their ways to make another product that's very similar because they want more of that game.
Right. It's almost weird how like oddly selfish it is, but it's like
the most endearing thing.
Yeah, it's selfish because they want more of the thing that, you know, the original company, you know, gave them in the first place, but they're like taking it and making it on their own. And it's like selfish in that way, but it's also like the least selfish thing you can do to like create an entire thing,
right,
just because you love it for everybody to play
from the goodwill of their heart,
right? And you're not going to make money off of it because you don't own the rights,
unless you're Sonic Mania people.
Oh well, I mean, they were hired by the company, but yeah, right.
But the reason why I'm bringing it up, because this is kind of old news, but I was just thinking about it. But there was I believe a Metroid fan game that was shut down because Nintendo wanted to stop production of it. And it looked fantastic.
Hey, we're busy screwing up Metroid 4 here. You can't make your own game.
I'm worried about Mother 4. Speaking of 4s. The fan game.
I saw that long ago.
What is the update?
I don't know if it still exists.
I don't know if it's... I haven't...
Yeah, because I heard of that so long and then nothing. Okay, 2015's the latest trailer they had of it.
It's been silent on this end.
Yeah, which is sad because I was like really looking forward to playing this, but...
Did you play Mother 3?
No.
2016. Oh!
Yeah, it's a bit of an ouch. Ooh. I'm surprised it's even been that recent. Once we cease scheduled updates, we started to receive a lot more questions than usual. Maps look... It's all things that would indicate that they're still working on it.
Yeah.
What kinds of things are returning? A lot of fan games have been taken down recently.
Yeah, that's so relevant.
Yeah.
But I think that's not the direction that these big companies should be going in. Because again, I think these are the most devout of fans.
It's a little weird to me why Nintendo would bother shutting down a Metroid. And I don't know if it was like a 3D game or a 2D game, but like... They know that they haven't been making money on Metroid in like a long time, right? Because because the last Metroid game was like Federation Force, and the last real Metroid game was well before that.
Was it Other M?
I think it might have been. Wow, what a note to go out on.
Ooh, no.
Oof, big oof. But yeah, they're not making any money off of it, which means if they're not, why are they gonna stop other people from, making a game?
And it's like new, like people want new.
Right,
and
they've been begging for it.
Yeah, and it reinvigorates their energy for the game again.
And the people who are like, "What? I've heard of Metroid, but what is it?" And then they see the game and they're like, "Hey, this could interest me."
It's like there are generations that have not even heard of Metroid because they're born very late.
The people who think the person in the suit is Metroid.
Because like people are born into the year where Other M came out, and if that's their first impression, it's like they probably didn't experience the SNES and the Game Boy Advance sort of games that were considered like the best. Like Metroid Fusion was considered like one of the best Metroid games.
Yeah, along with Super Metroid for the SNES.
Yeah, Super Metroid, and then there's Metroid Prime on the GameCube,
which a lot of people like too. Which is surprising. It's hard to make that transition. I think Nintendo has a fairly good record with making the transition to 3D.
It's actually
because people love Ocarina of Time, whether or not it's like that great of a game is up for debate, but people loved it. So that's all that matters, really.
And it's such a hard transition to make. It's like we have looked at the design, like just conceptually, it's like we've looked at the design of what this character does in this 2D plane. Now we have to reimagine everything about how this character, the look and how they approach
the world,
like, what even is Zelda, and like what do they do in a dungeon in 3D, and what do these puzzles look like?
What puzzles do we have to carry over now?
Because 3D throws in so many elements that you have to think about. I think it's why people criticize the water temple so vehemently. And I think it's because it might have been a little bit, how do I describe, ambitious in its puzzle-like labyrinthian sort of vibe to it. That there's like so many factors to take into account that it just became way too confusing for players. And it was sort of what I think stopped a lot of players from making progress. And I don't blame them, because it's like...
Yeah, again, well, I mean, there was also one of my friends apparently told me that there was a glitch that like soft locks, or maybe hard locks the game, so you can't like
I heard about
continue after that point if you've saved or something, maybe. But I
never learned if that was true or false.
Well, one of my friends says it happened to him. This was a long time ago, but
it's entirely possible. Like he just didn't realize there's some sort of thing in the puzzle where you could get another key. I think he got soft locked because he used a key on one of the doors and he couldn't find another key in that door, and there was another locked door that he needed, and he thought he used the key on the wrong door. I don't think that's the case.
Could be. I think one of the more frustrating parts about the water temple, so I get that like the water temple in general is just kind of a bad design, but I think the water aspect of it is really what is annoying, because it's slow, right? Because you get the iron boots, right? And walking around is just a task. You used to be able to roll and but now you're like you roll and you're like
it's like walking through mud.
Yeah. And that's not fun. I bet speedrunners hate that part, or I don't know.
Unless they can glitch through the wall.
Yeah, of course. Then
and they're out.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the sort of problem with most water level based games, or water level based areas in games.
Right.
Because of that sort of, it's like, how do you make it interesting when everything is conceptually slowed down? And I think Shovel Knight actually handled this the best, because I think when you're in water, I believe there's a water level.
There's the
like Underwater Knight or something.
He's like, I forgot his name, but he's in like he's in like a full suit of diving, like that full diving suit, like, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Water level,
like, what they made this interesting.
Well, I love the design of this area, just from the outset,
the whole
like
aquarium.
Yeah, and then it's got like but it's still got the iron, like kind of
like a
platforms with like it's like you can tell.
And they handle it well, because I think you do move a little bit slower, but it's not by much. But what's most intriguing part of it is that the fact that you can jump really high in water.
Yeah.
And that creates another whole dynamic of how you look at levels. And it's like, oh, I have to sort of jump at a certain height, not too high, not too low, but you can hold the jump button
It changes
longer.
the game fundamentally, which
Right.
is something that Shovel Knight's not only done most of the levels, but also is good at and is like fun when they do. So
yeah, and like I think this is how you correctly implement it. And a lot of games aren't really sure how to go. I think the Zora mask was a really good implementation.
But surprisingly, people don't like that water temple either.
What the heck?
It was one of my favorite temples in the game.
I thought it was really cool.
But people don't like it at all. Because it's like awkward and like you know how you have to switch the like rotation. The whirlpool one way or the other.
Right.
It still feels like you can kind of like sneak in if it's going the wrong way, but it feels like the game's like it doesn't feel like it's intentionally like that you can't go in that hole sometimes, right? And then that one, if you're going to talk about labyrinthian, that's because it's a lot of changing this switch, going back to the same room, being like, what the hell did I change?
What's different?
Yeah, going back, like, did I actually flip this switch correctly, or did I like just exit the room without doing anything that I was supposed to?
So I think it's clear that there's a lot of experimentation of like how to optimize water-based levels, and it's clear that these companies are trying different things. With it.
And I mean, you see that in 2D, it's a lot easier, right? Which is another 2D to 3D thing. Like, I'm sure that all the even in Metroid, the water was kind of annoying until you got the gravity suit, which just made the water not water anymore. But like Super Metroid, I'm talking about. But that was a 2D game, right? And I don't even think they bothered trying to put any water in the first Prime game or anything. It's difficult, right? Because it's a whole different beast when you're in 3D. The water specifically.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, there's correct ways to do it, but you also don't want to betray everything you've taught the player up to that point, right?
Because it's like you've always been moving around on land, and you know how the game works.
Right, and for Shovel Knight, it changes some of the physics, and that's fine, right?
Right.
But for other games, if everything changes, that's not a welcome thing. Yeah.
Well, no, making games is hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a little bit of a drought of like coming up with more environments. I feel environments are starting to feel same-ish now,
Well, the problem is like we we have hundreds of biomes on Earth, but they're all kind of
similar.
Yeah, they're all similar. So like once you go through those environments and then you go through the ones that are man-made, like cities and ruined cities, and like it becomes to the point where you're like, we don't have anything else. There's not like things don't exist,
Yeah.
And then Mario tries to do something like the Candy World, and then they use up the Candy World, and it's like, what do we do, right? Like we can only make worlds that are similar to our already existing worlds with random shit in them, right? That's the best we can do. So I think it's a thing where we kind of ran out of stuff to make because there isn't enough stuff in existence.
I think there's still room for more exploration with the sort of Candy World stuff. I'm a big fan of Candy Worlds because I
kind of like them.
I see them in Kirby. I see them in games like Yoshi and.
They were in Mario. I remember seeing some in gameplay of Odyssey, and I remember I was playing Sonic Colors, and they have a Candy World in there, like a whole world dedicated, six levels or so.
I like the Candy because it's different and it's a whole world. I like the Casino Night of Sonic.
Okay, that's
it feels like a biome.
And that's so ahead of its time too, because it's like it's got its themes and
it's pretty nice.
Yeah, everything about the casino thing is that's a very smart
because it's
way to go with it.
You can come up with the whole night environment and then have all these flashy lights of the city lights and
the overindulgence of things and colors and
they have themes of gambling and such. Maybe there's a ping pong ball thing.
Yeah. And there's a lot of movement that's associated with which I think the Sonic games, if I'm gonna give them credit for one thing, because I'm not, like, in general, I don't think I'm a fan of Sonic that
Just
much.
in general?
Yeah, like, even the beginning games are like, you know, I'm kind of on the boat with Aaron, like you said before, where he's like, you know, if you're gonna make a platformer, don't make me go at like 400 miles per hour into spikes, right?
Yeah, it's like you be a fast game or be a platformer. Don't be both.
Exactly. And I think it's hard to like make a fast game because, you know, human reactions aren't like fast enough to like, you know, do things when you're going that fast. But whatever, you know. I'm sure it'd be like a speedrunning game if Sonic was like try to dedicate itself to that. It could be pretty decent. But
we gotta shelf that topic real quick because I want to talk about that at some point.
Speedrunning?
Movement and sort of.
Right.
I kind of want to keep talking about environments and such.
Mm-hmm.
The Twilight world of Twilight Princess, I think, is fascinating as heck as well.
It's very I don't know. I think it's like I'm having a hard time remembering it, but is it like so the background is it like space like? And then I know that like there's a lot of like black platforms with like green lines running through them, like technological kind of.
Yeah, it's like a strange mix of.
Yeah, blue-green lines.
It's like bleak, but then Midna describes it as like peaceful, and like she really likes this kind of.
Okay, I don't remember that because that is like that's pretty smart and cool, like of the game to put in that like the resident there is like. Oh, it's beautiful, you know.
And like,
wait, what the hell, peaceful? There's hands that come from the wall. Fuck that, man. I hated those hands.
Such a cool section.
Are you kidding me? That section pissed me off.
They gotta protect the balls.
You had to carry around a dumb ball with all these hands trying to grab you at you, man.
I love these.
More like ball masters. All right.
Wow.
All right. Let's talk about these squares.
There's not much to talk about. It's basically, I like it. And I love it when you beat the sort of beasts or whatever. Whoops. When you beat the Twilight beast, all the black stuff recedes back up.
Yeah.
And like
I remember the animation. Or I remember there being an animation, rather.
There's like a little animation where all the little rectangles sort of like twitch a little bit and then recede up. And I always loved that detail. Because it really does make it feel like whenever a world was, or an area was sort of infected by the Twilight, it really felt like a whole nother world sort of invaded the light world or whatever. And it really was its own environment, I think. And I always thought this was cool about it. Because it's like things in the sky, like just little dots and just things. I think I talked about this with Xenoblade X, where there's just bugs everywhere and just in the sky.
Right.
I love just things just being in the air. So it's like, again, when you run through it, it's
because not all environments, and if it's a completely different world, you can't expect that environment to be completely like clean of things in the air, right? And it's just different.
And was it Mario Kart 8 did this really well with Sakura leaves, where you'd be racing and there'd be these little
we get
petals.
it, you made the game in Japan, good lord, we know.
those little petals, and it's just wow, so pretty.
Alright. I'm assuming that's only with like one of the tracks though, right?
I think so, and then there's other tracks where I believe has more confetti and such.
Oh, that's cool. I like confetti, like when you're going through like two stands on either side, and there are people there, and all the 2D like sprites jumping up and down on this stuff. Okay.
I love that shit. I eat that up. That's like my favorite stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because that's good, right? Because if you think about environments, right, what do you have to work with? Walls and floors, right?
Yeah.
But you
and
don't
creatures.
only have to work with walls and floors, right? You can put things in the air, and we think of air as being clean and empty, but that's only because we want it to be clean and empty. If you're in a
place that isn't
right, then it shouldn't necessarily be like that. And I'm sure there's a lot you can do with fog to make environments like a lot more different, right? Because you could have a cityscape, and if it's got a nice sun in the sky, and like you can see 1,000 statue of miles, then it's fine. But like if you have the same exact city, it's not run down or anything, but there's like thick fog everywhere, it becomes a lot more like ominous,
Yeah.
And the same thing with a forest, right?
This was such a fantastic thing that Silent Hill did, where they took a disadvantage that the hardware had of not being able to have...
To render that far?
Yeah, that's exactly
and then
it. They couldn't render that far, so they're like, fog it out, fog it out.
That is mad. That's mad smart, man. That's mad smart.
Because that's like, I don't know what I'm going to walk into. I'm just running in this fog, and you don't know what you're going to see.
That's how you do it, man. You take limitations either with your own artistic ability or like the software itself, and then you turn it into a feature. It's brilliant.
And that's so hard to do because you see limitations as limitations as opposed to a possibility of doing something really interesting with it.
And yeah, I was actually because I've done that not a lot but a few times, right? When so I've made games in the RPG Maker, right? And one of the things that I was getting frustrated with was there was this one forest level, but it's actually a jungle. You might not know that, Joe, but it was a jungle. Because you called it a forest all the damn time.
Well.
But it was a jungle.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the problems I was having was basically I made sprites for all the tiles on the ground. And one of the tiles was a tree. And I'd filled up the entire tile with the tree trunk, right? And so when the tree trunk reaches the ground, it needed roots, right? And I not only did I not I'm not a good drawer of roots, right? But also because the ground was so busy already in terms of like stuff that was on it, I didn't and I didn't have that many tiles to work with, right? So I couldn't draw the roots. The ground was too busy, so I couldn't put the roots there anyway, because I'd need to make it in a separate tile. I couldn't just put it in the same tile, right? Because the tree trunk's too thick and roots expand past the tree trunk.
You would have to make a tile with a piece of the chunk of that is the root.
That is the root, right? A tile dedicated to the root, not just the bottom of the tree.
And that would be a lot more work.
Right, and that'd be a lot more work, and then I'd need to implement it into all the other, because there are a lot of trees in that level.
Right.
So, and I don't know if you noticed this, but what I decided to do was instead of making it roots, I put a flower bud at the bottom of each of the trees.
Oh, did you?
As if they were blooming out of the that flower. And you know, that's not something you see in normal life, right? There it is.
Oh yes. I was gonna
Feel free to watch this on the same channel that you're listening to this on.
I was gonna pull up the picture.
It's up there. It's called The Jungle. Yeah, do you see that? Do you see at the bottom of each of the trees? And
let's make this glorious 1080p.
Oh,
there it is.
Beautiful. Yeah. And just let that song ride. But do you see at the bottom of each of the trees? And I'm not saying I'm a good artist or anything, but do you see how it has flower buds at the bottom of each of those?
That's what those are.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I'm so
I suppose
sorry.
I could have done it better.
Sorry.
But yeah. So that's like an example.
Them identifiable. That's how you make. It's like this is a tree and this is its base. So it does. Right. There's a lot of browns and greens going on in the first place.
Yeah, which is I guess another problem is my limited color palette.
I didn't realize that, but yeah, that actually is very helpful in terms of identifying what's going on in this sort of convoluted floor.
And in addition, you see that some of the trees have blue at the bottom right and some have pink. But this one with the orange leaf actually is the one with the ladder on it. And all ones with ladders have that orange.
Ooh, I didn't notice that.
And all of the ones that have the ladders that allow you to go up to the next level, like you see this one isn't attached at the bottom, so that's why. But all the ones with ladders that allow you to go up, so you won't actually just be climbing this ladder, you'll be climbing up to the top. They have yellow buds. So whenever, and with the red arrows that indicate you can move.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
So it actually turned out to be a really good decision to go with flower buds for it.
Yeah, because
except the fact that apparently nobody knows what they are. But
I could be an
it was a good idea, bad execution. but no, it helped actually, and I think that's one of the things that in Silent Hill,
they took it a disadvantage.
Yeah, they took a disadvantage and made it one of the features, the key features of the game.
And this certainly mixes up the color palette as well, because there's so much green and brown going on. It's it'd be nice to see some other colors.
Yeah.
And then you're able to do that, plus make it mechanically helpful.
Yeah. So That might not look like there was a lot of thought going into this game, but I promise
I never said
there
that.
was one or two thoughts, okay?
I never said that.
You thought it. You know you thought it.
Didn't say that, nor thought it. How dare you?
All right. But yeah, that's I think a helpful example.
This is now it's worth investigating the biomes of your game.
We're going to do this?
So, we got a mansion.
Right.
As the first biome.
Oh, good. Way to choose the,
Thinking. One other game that I think has, there's plenty of games that do this, but Luigi's Mansion comes to mind immediately.
Because it has in the name.
Very low IQ identification.
Works for me.
Like, that is considered a biome because it's like everything in that game is oriented to rooms, and it's like it isn't clear. I don't think there's anything that sort of strays away from. I think there's like a backyard at some point, or like a graveyard in the backyard.
And I mean, there's things like I don't know what they call them, but basically greenhouses built into the house. I guess you could call it a greenhouse, where there's like a lot of plants, but it's also they're all coming out of pots in very specific places. I'm talking about the second game, Dark Moon, which for the record, I didn't have that much fun playing.
I didn't play that.
But it was I wasn't a huge fan of it. I could probably let you borrow it sometime. Don't bother giving it back.
I was about to say, is it worth it?
I don't know, but like you said, with the mansions, there are 5 mansions in that.
Wow, what the heck?
So they're all different, right? So at the very least.
Can you elaborate? Like, how are they different? 'Cause I wouldn't imagine how.
Don't remember. It was a really long time ago, but I remember they're all sort of like. One I feel like had a lot like it was associated with ice, and like in the basement of it like led down to a cave, like an ice cave.
Ooh, that's
I think.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that was one of the bosses I didn't detest. But yeah, you see, there's the ice one. I think the one with like the snowmen and.
Okay, so it's combining elements of like, oh, here's your snow biome.
Right, and then this one's like more like a factory one.
Yeah, mechanical.
Yeah.
Sort of steampunkish.
I guess this one might have been the one with the greenhouse in it. Something.
I love those trees. I like that sort of shape.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
And then, I don't remember it very well, but. Or maybe this one was. Yeah, there you see the greenhouse in the corner. I guess it's this one. But anyway, yeah, so, like, I think a thing that would help with, like, making more environments is, like, this, like, combining 2 environments. Like, every one of these is supposed to be a mansion first, and then have a separate theme to it. So this one's a mansion with no inspiration. This one's a mansion with a factory, right? This one's a mansion ice. This one has a balloon on it. This one's tall, and of course, this one has the plant kind of themes to it.
Maybe I'm wrong then. Like, maybe there actually are a lot of biomes.
I don't know though. It's still like it's not new biomes. They're the same.
Subcategories of.
Yeah, and to this point, maybe subcategories are the only new we can get. Just making other biomes a little bit different, right? Because if you look at some game like Xenoblade X, it didn't have like new environments per se, but it took
it had the
forest. It took like the forest and made it really cool with like
and very concentrated with like what's inside it. So it had forest and it had the desert area.
Yes,
and it had.
But it's not like a desert; it's more of a wasteland, and I think there's an important distinction there.
What is the difference? They seem so similar.
Right, a desert, and they sort of are right, but like. In a desert, I imagine like the Sahara, the Mojave, with like like almost bright yellow sand, right? And
there isn't exactly sand in the desert.
Right,
I'm calling it desert, but it's not.
But it's more of like
rocky and dry.
Yeah, and it seems like I don't know, like the Wild West, there'd be a bunch of cow skulls everywhere, right? And you notice that the sands or the ground at least is a little bit whiter. Instead of having that almost vibrant yellow glow, it's a lot more
I'm gonna bright this
desert.
It'll come up. See, it came up.
Yeah, and you see how it's white, right? It's white, and then it has browns for all the machines.
Right.
And I think it adds to the wasteland aspect of it. when you see like these large discs in the background that are like broken something, right?
This is so cool.
Yeah, right. And you can climb on it. Oh, so good, so good.
I just want to sit down and play that, actually. But I've been playing Links Between Worlds.
Yeah, and not Minecraft.
And not Minecraft, which you've been trying to get me to play forever.
I want you to play Minecraft,
Listen
man.
here, you.
No, you listen.
I'll do a Let's Play of it. I'll be like,
you'll do a Let's
Play. Hi guys,
Play.
it's 2019 and I'm playing Minecraft for the first time.
I mean, that would definitely be a new take. Someone who hasn't played Minecraft yet, but also.
It's like I basically know how not everything. Like I don't know how to make it. Like I don't know how to make everything right. But
you know the whole half of the game crafting, so you don't know how to do half of it.
Listen here. Like I somewhat understand that it's like you punch the trees at the beginning and then you build your house and you just go from there.
Yeah, but that's what humans did in back when we were new.
Oh, you're telling me I'm like an ape?
We beat the shit out of a tree and then magically get a tool or something. Isn't that how it worked? But yeah. Okay. I mean, you've got the very first concept of what you're supposed to do, but I mean, you still don't know like the finer aspects that are really important. Like if you want to get a diamond, what tier of pickaxe do you need?
Rune. Wait, that's RuneScape.
You
Hold on.
literally just said rune. What the hell is a rune?
It's a hold on. I'll show you a rune pickaxe from RuneScape. RuneScape rune.
You know.
I got RuneScape on my mind. There it is.
Yeah? Is that what you need to harvest diamond?
No.
Then what?
It's just a
then what was that entire exchange about?
I don't know. You need your diamond pickaxe. It's so everyone's
the pickaxe is made of diamond. How do you get diamonds
right.
with a pickaxe made of diamond?
Right. I don't know actually.
Yeah, you don't. That's the point. You haven't played it.
It's probably like iron or some shit.
It actually is iron. Congratulations. Good for you.
That's actually not. I thought it would be more complex. Cause like.
No, it's very simple, but it's like I've told you that there's a lot of numbers involved with Minecraft if you really get into it, right?
Huh.
And like logic, like math logic, like if true then false.
Right.
There's also you see this thing right here, this thing in this picture. It's like a little red guy.
Yeah.
It's called redstone. This is like the wiring in the game, so you can connect mechanisms using it. Mm-hmm. And this is based on logic. And you can make things like AND gates to where if this is on and this is on, then this is on, right? Or OR gates where if this or this is on, then this will be on. Or you can make XOR gates where if this is off but this is on, or if this is on or this is off.
What the heck? So then Minecraft has just become programming?
You can make actual computers in Minecraft. Like calculators.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it takes a long ass time and a lot of materials, but there's a creative mode, so people just go in there and...
I made a calculator in Minecraft.
Right, and it's like, why bother? But still, see, that's the open-endedness.
But that's sort of a testament to the flexibility of the tools that you're given in Minecraft is what you're sort of getting at.
Right.
That it's a lot more complicated than what meets the eye.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't clear to me that I'm going to play with that as much, because that sounds very...
No, I mean,
it sounds like
me and my girlfriend, right, we're playing a multiplayer, because you can do a local multiplayer, right, where your computer connects over a LAN network or a local area network, as long as you're on the same Wi-Fi, I believe. And, as soon as we get redstone, I'd be like, cool, I can hook up a door that, opens or something. She's like, I'm going to leave all that shit to you. I don't even want to bother.
You're the very reliable Christian.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do my best, but... But yeah, right, so... Cool, I guess we're talking about Minecraft now when we're trying to be talking about environments.
It always comes back.
It always comes back to Minecraft, people.
Alright, let's get off this.
Yeah.
What else do we have?
Alright, so...
Caves / mine shaft sort of thing.
Okay.
I don't think caves are typically the most interesting. I think there has to be sort of a surprise. And maybe that's the draw to it. It's like, what's gonna be in this sort of hidden area that sort of displaced elsewhere from society.
I don't know.
Like maybe that's the draw of caves.
I like caves because there's a lot of freedom you have in caves, right? Because humans don't live underground, right?
Right.
So there's a lot we don't know about what could be in a cave, right? You could have a bear in a cave, or you could have like plants for some reason growing in this underground cave, right? That like are specifically engineered, like biologically evolved to live in caves. You could also have like minerals and stuff, and you can be very like, you have a lot of freedom with minerals because, you know, if you want to make a mineral that like explodes when you look at it weird, you have the freedom to do that. Who's gonna tell you there's no mineral that exists that does that? I mean, because you just haven't found it yet because it's underground, right?
So you think that...
And you can make the minerals do like anything, right?
So you think caves are sort of a medium by which to allow your creative freedoms to sort of roam, because the things that could potentially be in a cave
are almost nearly endless, right? So if you make a cave and it's dumb and there's nothing in it, that is your fault. And that's not a limitation of the environment, that's a limitation of your imagination.
Ooh, damn,
yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. So...
I didn't... Okay.
Which is why, for example, if you look at my mine shaft, there's nothing new in it and it's very boring.
Why do you love to shit on your game so much?
Because it's bad, Joe. It's good, but it's bad. It's a bad, good game.
I'm trying to think what gave me that impression that caves couldn't be interesting then. Because that was my initial reaction when I first thought caves. Not interesting.
I think like, the thing is the lack of interactables in it, right? So let's pretend you're playing Xenoblade and you go into a cave, right? And there's just a bunch of stone walls and finally you get to the end and you get a treasure. Well, that cave itself isn't interesting. What you're looking for is the thing at the end of the cave. And now that you found it, that's all the cave was. It was a hallway
to get to that thing.
To get to an item.
That's an interesting way to put a hallway. Because it's like, that implies that there's nothing interesting going on.
Right.
And which I think typically is pretty true. Like, I'm thinking of Zelda right now. Like, I don't think their caves are that interesting sometimes. Like,
I think I'd agree, because a lot of the time what happens is you go into a cave, you know, you bomb a wall, which I think the biggest, like, excitement of the cave is finding it in the first place, right? And because of the rules of game logic, you know that there has to be something in that cave. Right? Because you'll feel cheated if you walk into the cave and there's nothing, right? Like, even if it's like bugs on the ground that you can use to bug things up or whatever. I don't know what bugs are used for, but I think they had them in Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. But at the very least, there's something there that has some purpose, right?
Right.
Even if it's not useful to you right now, or you already have the max amount of rupees, so you can't carry more. And, you know, there's always, like, a chest there, right?
Right.
But, like, there's never, like, you know...
an intrigue with the cave itself.
Right, and, you know, maybe that's a problem of you, like, not caring. Like, maybe you're trying to get to that chest, so you don't care. Oh, wow, you know, there's this weird mushroom on the wall that I haven't seen anywhere else on the game.
So it's like...
And I can't interact with it, but it's interesting that they put that there, right?
Right.
Like a bioluminescent kind of thing.
So it's like... They could have done a lot of things with caves. Like, I don't know why I have this example in my head, but it's like, what if they just had a cave that was just full of spiders? You know, like that would be its quote-unquote
right.
biome.
And I think there's like, in Skyrim, there are things like that, like caves full of spiders in that. And I think that's a good application of it.
Yeah, Skyrim I think did it really well. Some caves. Let's not give them too much credit.
Right, I haven't played much of Skyrim.
It's been years since I've played it. But there would be levels where it would be very trap focused, or it would be like a thieves hideout would be very trap like centric.
Right. So you'd be like walking through it, and then there's things like I don't know, like ancient temples that are like kind of built into caves, and those like are also like trap kind of focused, right? But have the same like ancient technology feel to
and there's that sort of intrigue of like, oh, this is very different. You've happened upon this sort of abandoned sort of place. It's
and like
what happened?
Why?
Like,
why was it built? Why was it abandoned? What was its purpose?
And that creates more intrigue besides I need to get to the treasure chest.
Right,
it's
and
like it adds
to be fair, that's also like that's a temple. That's not necessarily a cave.
Yeah, I guess so.
But
it's sort of using the cave medium of of like it was initially seen as a cave, and then they went with their wild, imaginative ideas and sort of flew with it.
Right.
It's like, what if? Caves are interesting. Wow. Could be interesting.
I'm glad. At least got you to concede. Yeah, they could be. And then we already did jungle.
Where I
talked a bit about underwater. In this particular game, there's no like limited movement associated with underwater.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't give me like a bubble air thing.
Right, no, well...
Oh, right, the reeds.
Yeah, that's because you get an item that, bars you from going in there in the first place.
Right.
So, I mean, there's that. It's fine.
I think there's a lot of coral sort of things that you can do with colors, and like... fish.
You have a lot of freedom with color. Yeah.
Color and like fish. There's so much stuff you can do with fish. Because there's like so many shapes and sizes that you can just sort of roll with.
Yeah, because, you know, unlike an animal on land where you kind of, like, animals on land are kind of, like, restricted to
like
having
bipodal,
something to...
Bimodal, I mean.
Yeah, something, or, like, at least, or quadrupodal, I don't know. They have 4 legs.
I don't know what the word is.
But they have to have, like, legs that... like separates their body from the ground, right? And there's a few exceptions,
right?
Like
they have to have some sort of extension,
but
that allows movement.
On the whole, most of the time it's that, and that kind of limits you to like body, feet hanging down, maybe a head built into the body or above it, right? Which is like, okay, every animal's a giraffe, or a wolf or something, right? But for underwater, the cool thing is that you don't have any limitations. You don't need any legs to hold onto the ground. And because it's like a 3D kind of space. You can move in all directions.
Right. And this is sort of interesting. What if something did have legs in the water? That would be weird because it's in the water.
Right,
it's
right.
Like suddenly
like crabs and that kind of thing.
And suddenly the things that are normal on land are abnormal in the water. And it would be normal to have it in the water in the first place.
You know, it'd be terrifying just seeing like a person.
Just like
an underwater person down there. Yeah. I guess that they've already done that with like mermaids and stuff, but I'm talking about like a normal human ass looking thing. That would be pretty terrifying.
It was just like a fish that looked like a human.
Right. Yeah, right. So it's I think you're really correct about that being like the normal things on land all of a sudden look weird in water, and the problem is you can't really put a fish on land because that would be weird on land, but
just
like
give it some human legs.
Yeah, or like it floating by and you're like, that ain't right, that's just dumb.
But you know what, but that's interesting. You could have that. Like I've seen a lot of Japanese artists love doing this, where they would have a cityscape and then just like fish. Just
okay, like, yeah, I admit that is pretty cool, but it's like more like beautiful and like
it's
surreal,
kind of like surreal dream-like state.
But underwater, it
like
feels like realistic, right?
Goes.
Yeah.
It's like you can have just huge, massive creatures in the depths of the sea because that's what the depths of the sea contains.
Right, and
it would be like, that could happen.
Right, and things on land, at least in our minds, have size limitations, right? Like you can break those if you're making something up because there are, you can do whatever you want. But underwater, when things are big, it makes sense, right? Like you said, anything goes. And if you look at the science side of it, things in the water don't necessarily have like they aren't going to crush themselves under their own weight at the same way we are, because they might have water filling their bodies, which protects them from being crushed under their own weight, which is what a lot of large animals would have a problem with, right? Like anything that gets bigger than an elephant, its bones are probably going to be too heavy for it to be able to support, which is kind of weird, right? But that's just how it is. So yeah, underwater levels. I think there's a lot of freedom with that, and I think like games like Subnautica and that kind of thing.
Ooh, that's a very good example.
Because Subnautica, and I was waiting to bring this up when we were talking about like Legend of Zelda and how Ocarina of Time had a really bad water temple and that kind of thing. Because but then the thing with Subnautica is like it feels like you're supposed to be in water, and there are some land segments and they almost feel like you can't do anything in them because being on land almost feels wrong because everything else is water and you're used to swimming around in the game. But by the same token, like the things they do with the water, and like we were talking about colors earlier, because there are a lot of plants and waters that have like bright colors. So I don't know if fish will go up to them or something. I don't know what the evolutionary reason would be, but they have this whole like underground cave area where it has these large like jellyfish like mushrooms. They like they're mushrooms, but they kind of have like the transparent like of a jellyfish. Yeah. And it's all purple, and like there's everything's purple down there. Everything glows pink or purple, and the mushrooms are pink or purple, and the animals that go through it. The kind of prey fish are like I think their main color is purple, and the predator fish are like reddish purple.
I don't know if that's gonna come up.
Yeah, the problem is Yep, there it is.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And that's like, that just flies. It's like, yes, of course that's in the water.
Yeah.
Because that's just, plants do crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, the water...
Here's a little prey fish. He's a pink eye, yeah. This is the one that won't hurt you. This is the one that you need to eat for
I love
food.
that. What the You have to eat it?
Yeah, they're delicious. Look at how tasty that thing is.
It looks slimy, and I don't want it.
They say that the eye has a lot of protein. I think that's the in-game explanation for why they're so valuable. Yeah, here's the predator fish. He's a crab snake.
Oh, cool.
He's a lot less scary, honestly, when you see him from afar, because he's just like a little eel or something. There we go.
Yeah, and
there we go.
Ooh, that's.
And
I hate how veiny these things are.
Yeah, that's an interesting look for it. But these things are like their nests.
Huh.
So if you go into it, you can get their eggs, but you can also get freaking ambushed. So, yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, see, that's like, it's so cool.
It's like it's like strange neon lights.
Right.
That sort of reminds me of Vaporwave for some reason.
No, I mean, I think that's
sort of
part of the point, right? It's like bioluminescent in light.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. This combination, like, and obviously this isn't part of the biome,
right.
But it fits very nicely with the glow of your screen, plus the glow of your environment, and everything else is dark.
To be honest, though, I think because you can change the color of the vehicles, right?
Yeah. I know that. Wow.
It's cool, but this might not even be colored purple, but the light coming into it makes it look purple. I don't know, it might be colored purple, but
you think that the reflection of the light.
I've played the game, so yeah, a lot of the time the reflections of the light actually change the look of the interior.
That's so nice.
Right, and dude, that's like way beyond my programming knowledge. I mean, I guess they just have like shaders for everything inside the cockpit, but it's so cool.
So in that case, as far as I can tell, there isn't that much difference between caves and the water, where there's a lot of room for sort of creative imagination.
But once again, everything in the water, or with the water, you have tons more freedom.
So probably, So
it's
water
just
has
the same
more freedoms,
thing, but you have more freedom.
Conceptually, there's more freedom.
Right.
I'm trying to think of biomes that just because there's no way that those are the only two environments that allow for these sort of creative ideas to sort of run rampant.
To be fair, I think all environments you can.
You think so?
I think it's tricky, right? Because here's the kind of other issue we run into. Well, if people, this is the first, or one of the first games where it's like a 3D game, survival underwater, that's like good and fun to play, right? That I can remember anyway. Maybe I'm totally wrong and I should shut up. But, and it's one that's gotten really popular. But it's one of the firsts of its series, right? In terms of underwater survival. Yeah. Whereas, like, when you have normal survival or, like, zombie survival, like, you're running into the same environment
it's like
over and over again.
Rundown city that's
right,
on
and
fire.
They can make the rundown city 1,000 different times and change something different about it each time. But the thing is, you run out because it's been done so much.
That might be sort of the limitations of the whole zombie genre in the first place, though. That you can't really... There isn't much room for creativity, I think. I think
I think it's tricky.
I think Left 4 Dead 2 probably made it the most interesting, where they implemented like different types of zombies. Where there's like, what is it, the liquor, or it's like one with like that has like a tether and it like grabs you from afar. There's the charger that like rams you and sort of splits up your group. And there's the jockey that like jumps on your back, and there's the witch that you just have to leave alone and sort of
run away from.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
If you disturb her, then she takes one of your guys down completely, and that's sort of how they implemented that. But that doesn't mess with the environment, but that messes with your sort of enemies that are in that environment.
Right, and that can change the context of an environment, right?
And I think I'm trying to think of a game that really made the environments in a zombie-esque world really interesting. Maybe Resident Evil 4 made it really interesting, where it started out in like a village, and at some point you make it to like a castle, but there's still this sort of zombie
threat or something.
Yeah, there's still that threat, except they're sort of in the
What
acolytes.
are zombies in that game like?
They're like parasite things where where there'd be times where you'd shoot one of the zombies' head off and like a parasite would come out of its neck.
Oh, that's really cool, actually. I like that.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull up.
Because the thing I think that you also have a little bit of freedom with zombies is because
what is the nature of the zombie?
Right, because in the one game I forgot it, but it's like mushrooms basically, and it's cordyceps, which is an actual mushroom that is kind of parasitic in nature.
Yeah, there he is.
Ooh, yeah, he's a pretty boy.
And then we have like, there's so many different types of enemies.
But then there are other zombies that are like just like almost cult followers, and they're kind of zombie-like in the fact that they they have one goal and they're just slowly trying to complete that. And then there are things that are just monsters that aren't necessarily humans, right? That are zombies, but they still have the same kind of thing as zombies. So I think with zombies, there's a fair bit of
play with what they do.
Right, so. Because it's not always going to be the slow people who've been infected walking towards you. Sometimes it's like you said in Left 4 Dead, it sounds like they have a lot of like quicker, different like kinds of zombies that do different specific things. And that's good. But I don't know.
I still think the landscape sort of, what I was getting at with Resident Evil 4 is that it explores, I think, 3 primary landscapes, or biomes, or whatever you want to call them. And that would be just like a village, and then the village goes through a lot of subcategories where like...
Is it like foresty village and like underground village?
Not quite. It's more like weather-based changes where...
Okay, that's interesting. I like weather.
Weather
can also change environments.
Right, because it's like, oh, this place didn't seem so menacing until it's dark and raining. Which happens in the game, and your vision is a lot more limited. And all that. So that's sort of a subcategory. And there's a point where you like enter a lake on a boat, and that's sort of its own thing. Another point that you enter a castle, and there's more like just old buildings and how to describe it, like statues and such. And it has that sort of marble sheen to it.
Yeah.
So, like that's sort of its own thing, and so that you get to have like furniture and like paintings and sort of more prestige.
Right, where I assume in the village it's like a lot more poor,
Right. And then at some point I think you enter. Oh my god, there's actually 4 rooms. Okay, so the third one I think is like some sort of, it's like a lab.
Right, which
lab.
I think they have a lot of in Resident Evil, don't they?
Yeah, and it's like you enter a lot of rooms that are like really cold, and it's like
sterile.
Yeah, and it's like,
which is ironic because everything's a zombie parasite, but whatever.
And so you have a lot of glass and bottles, a lot of glass,
a lot of white
and
kind
cabinets
of gray
and such. Yeah. Another point, I think the last point that you enter is like a war zone. It becomes really action oriented towards the end, I think.
Wow.
And it becomes like a sort of, not quite trench fighting, but it has that sort of like World War sort of fighting of like gunfire.
Yeah,
happening.
and there's just like everybody going,
Right. So that's...
You're part of just like a small part of huge war that, you know, is completely out of your hands.
Right. And so it's like, Resident Evil's insane for going through all of those in the first place, but I like it.
Resident Evil 4, I think that's
it's
like...
one of the most popular.
Yeah, I was about to say, that was
games.
one of the best, right? If not the best. People consider it anyway.
Right, and I think them going so far out with their biomes, I think, created so much intrigue. It's like, how did I go from a village to a castle in such a short span of time? Well, it's not even that short. It's like, I think it sort of feels natural when it happens, but it just happens, and you're just like, yeah.
And you kind of accept it, yeah. Because it all feels part of and that's the way story can affect Biome. It like can attach them in ways that feels natural.
Right, so it's like you can implement sort of narrative reasons for these biomes to happen in the first place, and it doesn't always have to be sort of this rundown city landscape, because I think that's kind of boring. Even though you can do a lot with the design of how of the level design, but not so much of the artistic design of what the place looks like. I think is what there's a lot of problems with zombie games.
All right, so that was we were talking about underwater. So do you want to go on to the next biome? All right. So we already talked about temples a bit.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different types of temples, obviously. So you sort of went with the Aztec.
Yeah. The general like Aztec vibe, where I think some of the key features is the Aztecs were kind of war oriented, I believe.
Yeah, and you have weapons lined up.
Right, and they also had a pretty big civilization. They did human sacrifice, so there's like altars and that kind of thing.
You have a Greek pillar thing. I think that's Greek.
It's pillars were in a lot of different architecture, but we'll call it Greek because I mean
there's just differences.
I thought it was mainly based on the top, you know, and bottoms of the pillars, because you see most of the bodies of the pillars are.
Oh, here we go.
Romans were a little bit, so you see a lot of Greek had like the lines through it. So yeah, I guess mine would be more like a Roman Doric kind of simple kind of pillar, you know.
Oh yeah. Anyway, I don't know why that came to mind. But,
surprise.
Right.
But
so
yeah.
Weapons, sort of war oriented. Are these mats?
These are mats. They're prayer mats, which is something I know in Islamic religions, or the kind of Islamic faith. But also, I figured, you know, it feels religious in general, right, to have prayer mats, and I wanted to kind of make this temple look like one Aztec, so people are devout, and there's a whole half of the temple or a whole section of the temple that's like based on that human sacrifice idea, right? And I just wanted to make it look like these people were like constantly in fear of kind of a god, which is something that I feel like the Aztecs were, because they did human sacrifice, and you have to be pretty scared of something to sacrifice people to it, right?
Well, is it fear, or is it like just a part of culture? Because I think there's times where I think part of how it's
their culture, but it's their culture to be afraid of the god, because they believed in the end of the world, like the end times. That was like a big staple in Aztec religion.
And sacrifice was like to sort of prevent that.
Yeah, it pleases the gods to kind of push off that. But the idea is either they can just like be like, I don't care about, you know, your human sacrifice, I'm gonna end the world now, because it's their win is pretty much when it ends, right? The Egyptians had something similar to where the snake Apophis, I believe, eats the sun, and that's the end of the world. I want to say that the one in the Aztecs would be a snake that eats its own tail, and eventually it crushes the earth, because it just like keeps eating itself, right? And then it crushes.
So it's like slowly smaller,
like closing around the earth.
Right.
I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Christian 2019, but But yeah, that was the kind of themes I had in it, and I kind of did some of my own stuff, like there's symbols all over the floor. I'm not sure if those happen in either of those, but I think that's more of an Egyptian thing. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of everything.
Yeah, and like I see a lot of pottery. That's very typical of just like older civilizations.
Right, and artwork, right? Like pillars are the artwork, prayer mats are artwork, carvings in the floors and walls would be artwork, and pottery.
Wow. It's very homely.
Which is very interesting, kind of, I think, an examination of humans that, we're building things to, help improve our lives, and then also, like, art, which isn't, exactly necessary for survival, even though it's, like,
but
really cool.
It's always been in our civilizations.
Right, and I think
that's so interesting. It's like, we don't need it. I think it doesn't necessitate or allow for us to physically live, but it helps us live while we're living. If that makes any sense.
Right. It doesn't make our lives longer, but it makes our lives better.
It makes it more worthwhile.
Right.
It's like, this is enjoyable. It's not just like a flat slate.
Yeah. So that's temple, and I think because the human world has precedence with temples, there's a lot to choose from and mix and match in there.
Yeah. When I think of temples, I'm suddenly thinking of Breath of the Wild now, because I think they went in the wrong direction with the temples.
You think so? I know a few of them are very technologically based, right?
Right, you didn't play it, did you?
No.
Damn it. I don't know if I want to talk about it then.
I'm going to play it soon.
They go super hard on the Sheikah sort of aesthetic.
Right, which is the secret people behind the scenes who are kind of like way more technologically advanced than, the rest of the world.
They're essentially the Greeks of Legend of Zelda, I would say.
Like that. But I mean, people knew about the Greeks and they took over a lot of the known world. I don't think the Sheik are the same, right? They're like a tribe that's very kind of secretive, that works in the shadows kind of thing, Yeah.
My sort of qualm with them is I think they overdid it, whereas because they didn't. I think they could have done more, more variety.
Okay.
And I just think that a lot of the shrines are just way too similar. They kind of feel like, I don't know, generic because of how similar they all are. It's like, I think one of the most engaging things about the other Zelda games is that the temples are all drastically different. Like, think of the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time.
Right, where the forest is literally growing.
The Forest Temple is horrifying, and the music is just like, oh my god.
I'm trying to think, because there's two, right, technically. One's the Great Deku Tree and the other is the...
The Deku Tree is such a cool...
Which is, that's a pretty... I like that a lot.
I love it when games make so that you're inside, like...
Either like a whale or...
Yeah. Ooh, whales. Xenoblade 2 does that at some point where...
Really?
I believe their ship gets, taken down by this massive creature. And they're, inside it. And inside it are just people living. Because they just live inside it because it's so big.
That's cool.
It's pretty fantastic.
Right.
What was it? Ocarina of Time Forest Temple.
Which I guess is another kind of thing. And I know in the hero's journey there's, a thing about it, but, the belly of the beast is kind of another environment you can kind of work with, because then you can get that's
so
terrifying,
great.
right?
That's so good.
Just as you're walking through, and of course that's the one with all the annoying ass wall masters and everything.
And the aesthetic that they put up sort of allows for this sort of dreamscape, ghosts and spirits of sorts to sort of roam free in this sort of environment. And
it makes sense too, because it's another bizarre thing about it is, right, it's in the forest, but there's man-made, and it's it's kind of run down, but it's in one piece, right? But it's still a man-made thing in the forest, which, right, that kind of is bizarre if you think about it, right? Man-made things are built in cities and suburbs, and forests are forests. So when you're taking those two things and kind of combining them, it already sets a bizarre precedence for the rest of the weird happenings that could possibly go on in the level.
Yeah. We haven't even talked about spirits and ghosts and stuff, but I love it when the environment allows for those things to sort of reign, because I think that means they've set a strong enough environment to sort of allow this sort of mysterium, these ideas to sort of
Yeah, I wish there were more things where you could use like ghosts and that kind of thing. Because most of the time you're gonna have it in a mansion, right? Like Luigi's Mansion, or
Right.
like almost this, for instance, or in a forest, right, where nobody goes into the forest, like the Black Forest in Germany,
Right,
or
because
something.
there's a lot of mystery with what is in here.
Right. And if you set it up the way that it seems like, oh, like things have died here, kind of thing. But the problem is, with ghosts, ghosts are humans that have died, right?
Right.
In most, mythologies or most explanations of ghosts. So you have to have a place where humans go frequently. So there's multiple ghosts, right? Because if not, then there's no why would there be ghosts there, right? You can't just make it a wasteland or like a desert and put ghosts in it. It's
right. It has to be in a more concentrated area.
Right, and
it's usually in hand with some horror elements, which I think the Forest Temple allows for.
Exactly.
Which is why this sort of twisting, winding hallway is so appropriate in this sort of level. Because there is so much, like, what is this place, and why is everything so winding? And it isn't clear to me that we come out with an answer.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm trying to think of the explanation. I know there's, like, a ghost Ganon in it as the boss of that temple, and then you walk out and, like wait, hold on, why?
Sometimes you don't need an explanation. Maybe it's just cool.
And who's the sage? Is it Saria who's the sage of that temple?
I believe Saria is the sage.
Yeah,
she is. Yeah.
Saria. Do you know what's going on in there, Saria?
Did you do this?
Why'd you give me the password to the door, Saria, if you don't know what's going on? Huh?
Yeah.
There are dark forces at work here.
Maybe that's an instance in which the narrative sort of contradicts the environment.
In the peaceful Saria who's like never been outside the village being like, I know everything. Why? Are you bothered that I disappeared for like 10 years? No? Okay, I guess I'll just go into this temple now.
Well, I mean, Ocarina of Time, I don't think it's ever been like fully about the narrative.
I don't know.
Well, actually, maybe.
Ocarina of Time had a big emphasis on story, and that's kind of what set up the
why he's
the story like focus on the next Zelda games that come, right? Because a lot of them are focused on the story, even though, I mean, the story's just kind of like Ganon takes a girl, you go look for a bunch of items, and then come back and punch him in the face.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, probably a negative thing in the end, that it focused so much on story when you kind of tied yourself to a pretty boring story. So you kind of you have to improvise gameplay. You can't, or at least improve or innovate on gameplay. There's not a lot you can do with the story unless you're really trying to do something cool, but I don't know if it's a smart idea for Zelda to put story.
I was trying to give Ocarina of Time a pass on why there was a contradiction with the Forest Temple and the sort of narrative, but maybe it's just bad.
No, I mean, I think, look, it wanted to choose a sage from someone you knew, right?
Right.
And it had to be someone from that village in the forest, but there are only kids in the village in the forest.
And it's like no one quite gives a strong enough connection with Link. And allows for them to be this sort of strange,
mysterious.
But then again, maybe it does work because the sort of the Kokiri Forest has always been kind of a mystery,
right?
Because I believe the outside world can't enter into it, or else they become Stalfos. I believe.
I think if they get lost, they become Stalfos.
Right, and the sort of Lost Woods, I think, probably sets up a foreshadowing of like what is the Kokiri Forest in the first place. So maybe it's not that odd actually, because there always was sort of a mystery of what these kids were. Why are they immortal? Why are they in this sort of Neverland?
Yeah. Actually, I think someone's gonna sue. Holy crap! I never thought about the like very close connection between the two, but now that I think about it,
everyone's in green. They kind of look like Peter Pan,
and they're all kids. Yeah, and then there's that one annoying kid who I'm pretty sure I saw in Peter Pan. Oh God.
You know what? Narratively, I think it makes sense. Actually, it's just a lot more adult and darker, which is a bit odd.
Yeah, which kind of goes against the whole theme of it, but yeah.
But if I remember correctly, maybe Ganon did something to sort of, because I remember when you become an adult,
Sounds
monsters.
Like what do you do, Dick?
But if I recall correctly, there's sort of monsters roaming in the Kokiri village when you become an adult. Like there'd be, I don't know what those clam things are with the mouth.
Yeah, they're like you get Deku stuff from them, so maybe just
yeah, you get Deku sticks from that. But I think you know what we're talking about. But
yeah,
like there'd be a lot of those in the village, and it's like maybe this is a byproduct of what Ganon did. So maybe narratively it still makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The problem is, I don't like when stories kind of like push a mystery and then they don't have an answer for it, right? Like I feel like even if they're not going to say it in the game, the maker of the game should have had a reason that mystery makes sense, right? Or else they're just trying to be like, ooh, it's mysterious for no reason, right? And I mean, I think Ganon only comes up because he's born right into the Gerudo tribe later on in the story. So I don't know if he like his magic affects something, as early on as that. So yeah, that's temples, I believe. And now the next one I'm excited about. The next environment I'm excited about. Because this one I feel is pretty
I think this might be one of the most unique ones.
Yeah. I think I did pretty good with this. So this one is a machine in the middle of the sky, and if just to give a short explanation of like where this is,
yeah, because we're deep under the ground.
Right, because the rest of the environment, so you start out in a mansion that's above the ground, right? But then you go down in that mansion into a cave, the mine shaft. And then from the mine shaft, you go into a deeper part of it, which is the jungle. The jungle has an underwater part to it, and in that underwater part, you can go to a temple, which is below that. And then finally, the temple allows you to go deeper underground to this, which is the land of the giants, which is like a sort of sky world,
and it's like that doesn't
really close to the core of the earth.
And it's like, where the hell are we? This doesn't make any sense because the sky is up, not down. And that's very interesting, and I think that sort of is like, there's a lot of intrigue with the technology here now. It's like there's this ancient civilization that is far more advanced than those above.
Right.
And they were able to sort of make this sort of massive world just under everything.
And one of the important things about this is there's like, I'll give myself some credit here. There's actually like story reasons for like all of the things you see, right? So there are big pillars in the land of the giants. As you can imagine, there are giants in the land of the giants. And the giants, the whole story kind of revolves around this life-giving orb that produces basically all the life on Earth. And it can even prevent things from dying for a while. And the giants, basically, even though their lifespans are pretty goddamn short, the reason they're able to live for so long is because they have this orb that's constantly giving them life. But the problem is they're kind of sucking it dry. Like, it has infinite life energy that it gives them, but it doesn't give it at like an infinite rate, right? It can't just like give it billions. Like, it's got to kind of reload. And the older the giants get, the more life energy they need to keep them alive.
Gotcha.
Which is the problem that they run into. But anyway, the thing about the life orb is you need to kind of be near it to get the effects of it. So the whole machine that you see on screen is like a wiring, and you see the like squiggly blue going through it. That's literally life energy being transmitted through that machine to them.
And there'd be sections of this area where there wouldn't be any energy going through it because it's probably run out. Dry.
Yeah, because it's run dry. And that's part of the issue in the story, that the giants are running out of that energy. So yeah, but this is a pretty unique environment in the sky.
Yeah, it certainly is unique.
But it's not the first, or it's not the like completely unique, right? Because even in Legend of Zelda, they had like a sky world, right? And there have been sky worlds and other things. And usually either Skyworlds can do two things, right? They can use technology or magic, because otherwise why are they in the sky, right? And I don't know which one Legend of Zelda went with. I'm trying to think of Twilight Princess here, because that's where you get the double claw shot.
I think they went with the Akuku place.
Yeah, the Cuckoo place.
I vaguely... It was very...
heady face people. Yeah.
Twilight Princess. Oh. I don't even know what Sky Temple. I'll just type in Sky Temple. It was very windy, sort of. That was the biome that they sort of created. Very.
Okay, so it looks like they went with technology because you can see propellers and that kind of thing.
And stuff. That would not keep anything.
No. As someone who actually flies planes, that probably won't cut it.
Oh, people are trying to draw parallels to Skyloft.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and then Skyloft is another one. I think Skyloft uses more magic, though. Or, I forgot. There's actually a story reason for it. But, yeah, you can see that even that, like, even though it's not been done as much, it's still, an environment that's been used before. And I think if people make a lot more sky related things, like I know they did it in the Owlboy, that everything is kind of like in the sky, like they're in the stratosphere kind of, which is really cool. I think the more and more people use that, the less and less original it becomes.
Yeah, right? That looks exactly like Twilight Princess.
Yeah, the whole cannon right there, and like, yeah. I remember it showed you like a map of the different levels of the sky that it kind of like that exists in the game. I don't remember. It's like they're explaining something or something like that. But yeah. And you can see these just giant rock formations like crossing over in the distance. And
it's getting like Xenoblade vibes here.
Yeah.
I always love that stuff.
Because it kind of makes sense, right? If plants are able to hang on to the different things, that they'd be able to survive. But yeah, so there's Skyworld 2, but the thing is, it's been done, and the more and more it gets done, the less and less people will think.
It's like original.
Yeah, they'll be like starstruck when they look at it and be like, wow, what a cool environment, right?
I mean, that's how I was when I saw it the first time. I'm like, whoa.
Right. So that's the problem, I think, with environments, is that there may not be I think there's a hard limit out there, and you have a lot of freedom. I think we haven't quite gotten near that hard limit, right, of like different environments possible. But I also think that the more people see one environment, the less they'll care about it. And eventually, no environment will be new and cool because it'll be done to death. Because there's a hard limit.
So when people see something unique, it's like, let's do this a lot.
Right.
They're going to milk it as much
I mean, you've heard of that in other situations. So, I mean, of course they'll do it with the environments, right?
Well, I think sort of what Nintendo's going in the direction... I think we talked about this with... What's the new game?
Which one?
The one with the egg.
Link's Awakening DX.
Yeah.
I don't know what the...
Like, we talked about the sort of toy aesthetic of it.
Right.
I think... And then we talked about, like, Yoshi's.
Yeah, Yoshi's Crafted World and all
that. So like, I think sort of directors and, like, producers are sort of looking at, like, real-world environments as being environments. And seeing them as I think that's the quote unquote new thing right now.
It's like emulating real world environments with a fake, or handcrafted version of it.
Yeah.
So it's got like the human touch and that themes that kind of come with, the nice gentle thing that is associated with knitting and all that, right? Because it's nice and relaxing and that kind of thing. So, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's on the verge of getting overused right now.
Well, Nintendo's gonna try it until someone tells them to stop. Stop, guys.
That's the only direction that Yoshi's going in right now.
Right.
Yoshi has become the mascot of plastic and yarn and yeah. So this is supposedly the inspiration for the Okuku stuff.
Really?
Yeah, it's like this really old painting we're drawing.
It's like
and it has this like bird thing.
Salvador Dali kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or not even that. It's like MC Escher. There we go.
Let me think.
MC Escher. There we go, boys.
My man. just want to look at his stuff real quick.
Yeah, I love this guy because like I can't even wrap my head around how I'd like begin drawing a lot of these things, but like
because it is very much so like dream-like states, and it's like it strangely works and doesn't.
It makes so much sense and makes so little sense.
And that's why it works. It's like how this I hate this so much.
I love it.
He loves the stairs. He likes the stairs.
Yeah, he does like stairs. I think he had some childhood trauma with him because that was also the inspiration for the hell thing, by the way.
What was?
So
moving on to the next environment.
Moving on to the next environment, even though I like this one, I thought it was pretty decent. So in hell, if you look at the ground, it's supposed to be kind of an illusion, right? Hell's supposed to be all about illusions, right? So if you look at the ground in here, it's like a repeating pattern, right? Of like people holding on to each other's legs.
Right. I remember.
Yeah, and that took me a long ass time to finally get that to work, but yeah.
So there's the head, and there's another head there.
Yeah.
And they're sort of like winding and twisting.
Right, and they're just like constantly going down. At the bottom half of the like screen, there's the people's feet hanging off the edge, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
I didn't notice that.
And then every so often you'll see like there's one right here, like he's missing his head or something, or like a demon somewhere on here, I don't know. Right here you can see it, a little demon hanging off the guy's leg. Yeah, so
I didn't even notice that detail. That's crazy.
Yeah, in that game I did a thing where every ground tile I'd make 2 variations of it, and then I'd put them scattered everywhere just to keep it a little bit more interesting.
Right.
But,
and then you did a whole You did a whole MC Escher thing with the gray area.
Right, above in hell.
And the stairs, yeah.
It's really hard to even get to hell in that game, so I'm surprised that I'd spent so much time on it. But I really wanted to make it a cool, like, MC Escher kind of thing.
It's almost like...
And that's what this hell is based on, just illusions, so...
Yeah, it's almost like you have artistic integrity or something. You don't want to half-ass your...
Yeah, artistic integrity, but I just ripped it straight from MC Escher. Thanks, bro.
Everyone's a thief.
Yeah,
in terms of inspiration.
Everybody is a thief.
Wherever that thing comes from.
I don't know. But from a thief, probably. See, I'm not weird.
I'm trying to think of other games that have implemented hell-like scapes. Because,
I mean,
people have
most of the time it's fire and brimstone kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or like fleshy kind of thing, which is kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, I believe Devil May Cry did something where where platforms would have like teeth, rows of teeth like under it, and it would have like strange anatomical parts just sort of hanging from different platforms and such. So there's that whole like squishy, fleshy aesthetic to it.
And I think that kind of works for hell because if you think about it, hell's a very like human-centric kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
like, they never say animals are in hell unless the like animals punch
that is actually
humans,
wow.
right?
I never thought of that. It is. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh man.
Yeah. So you go to hell by being human. You stay out of hell by using your human reasoning not to do bad things, right? So it's all based on the humans.
And therefore, it makes sense that hell would have all these sort of fleshy abominations in this sort of
because much like how we did it to ourselves, that's a reflection of that. Hell is a reflection of our
insides.
Yeah, our hell's a reflection of our nastiest features inside and like mentally and physically.
Yeah.
So.
Ooh,
yeah. So I feel like that plays into the themes of hell well, and then you have fire and brimstone, which I like. Brimstone smells and fire's bad, I guess.
There's always been sort of this fire theme with hell. I think that comes from the Bible. I believe the grinding and gnashing of teeth.
Right. Yeah. And I read through Dante's Inferno, and I don't remember too many like fleshy parts of it, but I remember a lot of like wasteland or like desert kind of things that were in hell in that story. That's a really fun story to read.
Dante's Inferno?
Yeah, Dante's Inferno.
I think you've told me to read it at some point.
I recommend it to anybody, honestly. And, you know, this is coming from a guy who doesn't read shit anymore, but no, it's really interesting, and it kind of, I don't know, it's weird because it, like, it's written by what I'm sure is a Christian, and, you know, it's kind of dumb because a lot of the people who are burning up in hell are his personal enemies. In the story, or like people that the author specifically doesn't like. Stuff. Right. It's the world's first self-insert novel because the main character is named Dante and the author's named Dante. They have different last names, so they're totally different. Okay.
Well, first really successful self-insert, I would say.
You're right. There have probably been plenty before.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a difference between an autobiography, right, and a self-insert. And I guess the difference would be the realisticness of it, like, did it actually happen or not? But, because I'm sure there are autobiographies about people trying to, you know, immortalize themselves before they died. But with Dante's Inferno, I find it, like, interesting the way it, like, talks about the religion, because it's not, like, super favorable all the time. Because the guy obviously believes it, but, like, there are people who are, like, Gentiles, I believe they call them. People who are born before, or I don't know. But people who are born before Jesus existed, right? And they go to hell because they didn't believe in Jesus. Because they didn't know he existed. Which is like, what the fuck, dude? That's not fair at all. Dude. But, I mean, they're not, like, being punished. The only, like...
Isn't the whole narrative that when Jesus happens, he, like, brings everyone back from hell after he exists and, like, brings them to heaven or something? I could have sworn that was a narrative that
I do not know, because you're probably, way more well-versed in that than I am.
I wouldn't say well,
but
more.
Yeah, because the knowledge of mine is basically 0 plus Dante's Inferno, but,
I'm pretty sure that's what happens, where, like, Jesus saves.
And that might have been something new that they, like, that they added or something, like, new that they said would happen, because when Dante's Inferno was written, it was very much that the people who were born before Jesus died were like in hell. Because I specifically remember that part because it's one of my most, like, fascinating parts to me of the whole story. Also, that the bottom layer of hell, not fire and brimstone, it's cold. Because you know why? Because cold sucks way more than heat does. So they knew what was going on.
And at the extremes, they're pretty similar as well, I would say.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so cold it feels like it's hot. Or like it's so hot, well, you feel hot. They're both hot in some fashion. It's like...
Yeah. But, so that's the hell kind of landscapes, which also I feel like they take surreal kind of aspects.
Yeah, they definitely do, and they're allowed to do that again because we have no idea what hell is.
Right, exactly. It's a man-made concept, right. So
there's no correct way to do it. It's like we don't need.
The only idea is that it's supposed to be pretty bad.
Yeah, that's the overarching thing.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of intrigue with, like, personal narratives of people going into hell, because it's like hell can be different for individuals.
Right, because if it's the punish based on, like, what you like least, right? You know, someone with arachnophobia would be tormented by spiders, right? And that kind of thing.
The Greek gods, I think, implemented it very interestingly. Like, there was someone that, like, rolled up a rock for eternity.
See, he wasn't even hell. The difference was that guy was in real life. Like, he was doing a mountain, but they made him live for eternity, and that was his thing. I think actually he might have been either someone who was, like, trying to overthrow the gods or, like, a god himself.
And that was his punishment.
And that was his punishment for doing that.
Wow.
Was to, like, work forever but never complete the task.
And it would be, like, the most pointless thing.
Right, and I'm sure that's frustrating, right?
And that's dismissing
but
that
there's a lot of like, philosophy based on that with, like, the guy, like, when he's walking down the hill, it's like, you think he ever felt like, you know what? It wasn't so bad. Whenever he's walking down the hill and not, to grab the rock to push it back up, do you ever think he's like, you know what? I'm living.
I'm living.
Yeah, but yeah. So that's hell, and I do like the pointlessness, like the punishment being never being able to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
I think that's a very appropriate like thing because humans are always striving to like
right, and that's like
improve.
That's one of the big reasons of life, or why I think people. This is sort of my own thing, but I think part of the reason why what makes life meaningful is meaning, like doing things that mean something to you.
Right.
And the biggest punishment would be to do something that is meaningless and means nothing, such as pushing.
You hear that?
Up a
People
rock.
quit your jobs, burn things down. Come on. But yeah, I think one of the most soul-sucking tasks is doing something where you'll never improve or get anything from it, which is why that kind of hell is perfectly horrible.
Yeah.
Yep. So hell, everyone. All right, and then I think that's all the environments I had in my game at the very least.
Until you had a boss fight, which was sort of just a blank black background in the void.
It's supposed to kind of be so, you've gone all the way to the core of the earth, right? And the core of the earth was really bizarre, right? Mm-hmm. And then at the bottom, in the middle of the core, is just kind of a void with the giant standing there in that void. And you see how the whole entire thing in the fight, basically, it's animated so that this track just constantly goes into the middle of this giant, and that's because this giant has inside him the core of death, which I told you about, the core of light, right? Which like constantly made life. Well, the core of death is the thing that balances that out, right? Because or else it would just be creating energy with like no return, right? Mm-hmm. But the core of death basically just sucks things up and destroys them completely. So when this track goes into this guy's basically core of death, a little black hole in his like body, right? It just consumes it. So that I felt like that was kind of appropriate, that everything around him was a void because he consumed it already.
Yeah, I can.
So I get that it's like, yeah, it's not really interesting.
It's like you could have there's possibility of what is the void besides black. It's like there could be just like things sort of fluttering around, or like
right, like remnants almost.
Right, or like hands sort of come up.
And I did want to put pillars in it, but I think there was a specific reason I didn't put pillars, like scrolling by on
that'd be
either side.
Pretty hard.
It wasn't that it was pretty hard. It was that I think I'd need to either put it below his arms, and it would look weird that his arms like all of a sudden got cut off by a pillar. And also when there are attacks going on in like these areas beside the actual giant,
it would be obfuscated.
Right, it would, and the way the map is like ordered, which things go on top of which, like a pillar could go over the attack, and it would be like, what? Right? But yeah, so I think there were gameplay reasons why I couldn't do it, why I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. But still.
Lots of environments. Alright. You want to take a break?
I do want to take a break. This was it was an interesting talk about environments. I do think one of the most valuable parts of a game is kind of where you are.
Considering it's like this is where I'm going to be for a hefty amount of time. It best be interesting.
And the game can give context to the environment, but I think it's more important that the context or the environment give context to the game, and it just kind of it can change the whole meaning of everything,
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
Alright, we'll be back
after these messages. Let's go.
Alright, I have this written down. So, I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of people have been saying yikes, F, and like, oh, whenever something like awful has happened.
I know what they've all had. I've heard them all from you.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
But I'm recently starting to try to not say it as much, and here's sort of why. I sort of view those words as sort of a little bit too dismissive of the problems that people have, instead of being empathetic and expressing it in some way. And I feel like from my exchanges with other people, that seems to be their go-to phrases to say when people are genuinely talking about their concerns of like the heroes of life.
I think
It's comedic.
You need to break it. I think we need to break it down a bit because I don't think all the reactions are the same. I personally, whenever I hear about like something really bad that's happened to someone or something, I'm like, oof, because it's like it's hard to hear. I think oof kind of, it's like, to me it's like, ooh, that's hard for me to hear that happened to you, and like I don't know what to say, right? Like there's not a lot. I don't want to just come out and be like, oh man, I'm so sorry, right? Because that seems disingenuous.
I actually don't know if it is, because it's what people say when they're trying to be genuine, I think. Even if it may come off, like, it can come off as that, but I think if you mean it, I think it comes off correctly.
Right, but I think you need to take some time to, like, you know, process, kind of, like, or at least act like you're processing it, you know? Like, being like, ugh, that's a tough thing to think about, right, you know? But you can't just immediately be like, oh, sorry, you know? Yeah. Right after.
Yeah. It's just the connotations of where F and
F I definitely disagree with. F I think is my biggest, like, no, you should not say F after that, because that's the whole,
Oof
like,
is a little bit,
press F to pay respects.
That's like it's supposed to be comedic in a really bad situation, so it's like it's kind of making light of it, even though it's not the intent. It sort of is.
Yeah.
My sort of qualm with it is that it's too easy. It's like, it's too easy as a go-to.
You need to think through your answers before you respond to something that really is bothering someone else.
And I think, even if you have to pause to think about what exactly you want to say, like, to genuinely express empathy for whatever their problem is, I think is a lot better of an answer. Even if it comes off as a little bit awkward, I think it's better than F, oof, or yikes. Especially yikes.
I think F is worse than yikes. Yikes might actually be pretty bad. But I think oof, I think you can get away with oof. Because I try to get away with oof. And if I'm wrong about this, then I've hurt people's feelings and I refuse to be wrong about it.
I think it's a origin, because oof obviously originated further back than what I'm about to say. But
okay.
I think the reason why oof has recently come into popularity is because of Roblox. And when...
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so for you, it's just another word to express, like, oh no,
right,
sort of. But I think it has this sort of meme implementation to the word.
Does it?
Like,
is that what your character says when they get injured in Roblox?
Yeah, let me just pull up this.
To be honest, that's actually what the old Minecraft soundbite for getting hurt was like.
Yeah, there you go. That's literally it.
That's so, like...
One more time. There you go.
Okay, Minecraft had like a deeper, like, right, kind of, that's almost exactly it. But, they used to anyway. So I can kind of see, why that would be bad, like, oof.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, it's still like...
Yeah, I guess, as we sort of said, I don't know, even tone matters.
It does. Well, I mean, tone matters almost more than what you're saying, right?
Right, because I could be aggressively telling you how much I like you, but I'm saying it aggressively.
Yeah, right, and I'm like, you know, I get the point of what you're trying to say, but I'm scared. And that's not exactly what you want someone who you like to feel about you.
Yeah.
So I think tone matters more. So the words definitely do matter, and I think the way you say them and your tone matters more.
Yeah. A reason why that came up, I was just thinking about that after I had an exchange with one of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, I was just expressing, it wasn't even that serious. It was like, I had like a small problem, and he was just like, oof. And I'm just like, can we talk about that? And we sat down for like, or I sat down, he was doing stuff with his trombone for like 10 minutes, and I just talked about empathy.
You're like, man.
and the origins of these words.
Man, empathy is such a weird thing. Wah, wah. Yeah, right? And I just...
Because empathy's hard. Like, I'm noticing that younger kids are using these words because
to express the empathy, or like to try to...
right, because it's hard to express that kind of feeling to other people when you haven't existed for very long.
Right, and I mean that's part of it. The empathy versus sympathy. Sympathy is like, they say anyway. Sympathy is like, oh, I've been through this experience, so I know how you feel, and I'm sorry, and I don't think you should be like, you don't deserve to feel this way. And empathy is like, I can guess at what you're feeling, but I don't know. I've never been through it before, so I can't like I can't really know fully what you're going through, but I do, feel sorry, and, wish it wasn't happening or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a lot less with the words. But if you're gonna use a meme to respond to someone, don't do it when they're telling you, one of their like important like things.
Yeah.
No, just don't do it.
There's time and place.
Time and place, indeed.
It's really funny. Alright, let's talk about Sonic.
Yeah, my father just got cancer. Oof! What the hell, dude?
Ooh, yikes.
Yikes. Alright, what was the other thing?
Alright, I was gonna talk about Sonic at some point, because I don't know if you know
Again?
this.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's bring him back from the dead.
I don't know if you know this, but I believe the director of the original Sonic games was... Well, there's no way he wasn't, but he was heavily inspired by the original Mario games. And there's a gap between when Sonic was made and when Mario was made.
Mm-hmm. I think it was comics. Sonic had comics first, but then they put into a game.
Really?
So I'm guessing I want to say that's true.
I might be talking comics came after.
I know that they came out at very, very close
in proximity.
Yeah. But it could have just been that the implementation of the Sonic games were, influenced by Mario, which would make sense too. And as for, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all knowing that.
Yeah. So what I was gonna get at was the director would play Mario games as he would go through the levels as fast as he could.
Oh.
Because he really enjoyed the sort of pace of it, and he kind of wished that the game would support that type of play more.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is sort of the timer system that sort of makes it like, oh, you shouldn't loiter around too much. But it was more so. The focus certainly wasn't the doing the level.
I think one of the important things about especially the original Mario games was that they to make the game longer, right? You hear about this a lot since the games weren't long on their own, right? Mm. Somebody can beat the game in 5 minutes, but they had to make the levels harder, and therefore you had to stop more. It's like what they did with the original Castlevania, where you had to think about what you were gonna do. So I honestly don't think that the Mario games really fully supported their that kind of speed playing. I mean, you could play through them if you're good enough, and certainly people have.
Especially if you know the level well enough.
Exactly, but I don't think they were made for that. So from what it sounded like, neither did that guy, and that's why he made Sonic a more fast-paced.
Right, and that's
game.
What I was gonna get at. I'm trying to think of the main differences between 2D Mario and 2D Sonic. So some ingenuity that I think Sonic had is a method by which to move very quickly by holding down and then the jump button, so that you do the roll spin.
Right, and that's a way to go from 0 to 100.
Right.
But also you have to stop to do it.
Right.
So there's a kind of risk reward a little bit kind of built into it.
And Mario was always just hold a direction, and I think that was how the director was like, I need a method to go fast. I hate
gotta go fast. The director was like, guys, we gotta go fast.
So mechanically, we've talked so much about it, but level design wise, the difference between Mario and Sonic is that they implemented ramp sort of structures.
Right.
So there's more quick verticality.
Which I'm sure was a pain in the ass, because, like, I can see how blocks, you can make, like, tiles and blocks, but, like, ramps?
Yeah,
I can't even comprehend ramps.
Like, I think that's sort of the advantage. It's why there was this whole rivalry between Mario and Sonic so early on, because...
Well, they're both platformers, right?
Right, but, and Sonic was, like, this flashier, faster, and cooler sort of character.
Right.
That had a lot of draw to him.
Mm-hmm.
And had verticality. And I think sort of Nintendo's answer to Sonic was the whole it's an SNES game. Super Mario World, I think, is when it implemented the cape.
Yeah.
And at some point they implemented the raccoon thing.
I think that was the same.
Maybe.
I want to say. Yeah.
Right, and so that was their sort of answer. And so what was Sonic's sort of rebuttal? And it seems to me that it was Knuckles.
Yeah.
Because now we're looking at different methods by which to play the game. So Sonic allowed for speed, Knuckles allowed for climbing things, which is kind of similar in its verticality.
Yeah,
but I think
I don't know. I think a movement in Sonic, in general, like the feel of movement in Sonic feels a lot better than Mario, right? Like Mario, it's just like it doesn't feel like you're moving a person. It feels like, you know, I could be moving I could just be moving like a little block around, right? And as long as it can hop, you know, I don't need to see that it has a walking animation, right? I'll buy it and then I can step on people, right? And that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
With the block, I don't need it to be a person, but like Sonic has to be, you know, this fast thing with like quick moving legs and that kind of thing. Because it all feels very like familiar, his movement. Like when you turn around, he doesn't just loop around in a second. He like takes time and like has to like stop and then go the other way.
Yeah. I don't know why I've just been thinking about this, but like what went wrong between the transition from 2D to 3D?
Yeah, so I guess we're gonna talk about Sega's implementation of 3D.
So we've already sort of talked about Link going from 2D to 3D, I think, a little bit, and how complicated it was for them to do that, and therefore some of their levels were more ambitious than I think then was comprehensible to the average player.
Yeah, I agree. Here I kind of want to get into, have you ever played Mirror's Edge before?
I've seen a lot of gameplay of it.
Right, so it's a parkour 3D game,
right.
And the idea is you're supposed to move through the environments as quick as possible.
Right.
Kind of similar to what Sonic does. I don't think the 3D Sonics, I don't think they thought long enough about how they could make moving through a 3D world make sense and like kind of easy and that kind of thing. For one, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I really haven't played a lot of 3D, the earlier 3D Sonics, but like, when you move in the earlier 3D Sonics, you have to stop, or like your turning is like based on, it doesn't like make your forward movement change, it turns your head and then you can go forward. So if you wanted to turn, you'd stop, turn, and then go a certain way. You wouldn't be able to just like smoothly turn, like your body wouldn't turn into it.
Well, that's some games. Well, let me think. I'm thinking of Sonic Adventure 2.
Right, Sonic Adventure 2 or Sonic Adventure and that kind of thing. Because if I'm not,
it was kind of weird, I think. Actually.
Right.
It was easier to just hold forward, which seems to be the problem with some Sonic games, that they have forward syndrome.
Forward syndrome, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Or it's the equivalent of on a keyboard. It's like holding W the whole time.
Right, right.
There's like it's
or
just a
I
walking simulator.
if you're.
It's like a walking
cool.
simulator except fast.
Yeah, true. And there's merit to that, but not when your game is trying explicitly not to be that. And I think what the Sonic team tried to do when they implemented it into 3D is they gave Sonic the homing dash, that kind of thing. But I don't think that was good enough. I don't think they thought long enough about how to make it better, and how to make it so, you know, you had to like actually play the game instead of pressing W, right?
Yeah, because the homing missile makes it so that you don't really have to aim.
Right. You once again, you
It's
jump, you press, and it looks cool because you're like jumping from one to another, but like.
It's just like it's not the most mechanically challenging.
Yeah, it's not mechanically challenging. It requires no skill, and instead of just pressing the W button, you just have to like press the other button again and again instead of holding it, which super difficult.
And I think the reason why sort of Mario works so well is because you can take in information from your world at a slower pace,
Mm-hmm.
and it still be very engaging. You know.
Right.
I think that's sort of the qualm with being fast, is because it's so fast, you can't process that information as quick as you want it.
Right, like I'm saying, it's just, it doesn't work in my head. It doesn't...
Like, platform plus fast, no.
Right, it just...
That is not... Those are two very difficult genres to put together.
Right, and you can play a platformer fast, but it's going to require some... going through, right? Like, you're gonna have to do it more than once, and that does not appeal to your casual crowd. Because your casual crowd, which, by the way, Sonic is supposed to appeal to, it's supposed to appeal to everybody. So it needs to appeal to that younger, casual crowd of people who are gonna love Sonic as they grow up, right? They just want to, you know, a game where they can look around in that environment and, right, you know, like, jump from platform to platform, right? Which I don't think Sonic fully gives them.
It almost feels like... I don't know if this is going to make sense, but it's almost like watching a cutscene in that regard, of how easy...
It's a quick time event, basically.
Yeah. Like, I mean, not all of it, like, I'm thinking more about... It's like, you can take Sonic Adventure 2 battle slowly, if you wanted to. You could treat it like it was a Mario game, where... Instead of grinding on the rails real fast, you walk down the stairs. You take the stairs.
Take the stairs. But yeah, it's just not friendly enough, I feel like, to the,
Oh, this is an interesting point. Someone pointed out, I've been watching a lot of, like, game design videos for some reason. I'm not sure why. That seems to be the reason why a lot of our exchanges seem to be about game design and environments. And such. Someone talked about how combat and platforming don't go very well hand in hand either. And Sonic seems to be trying to get the best of all three worlds. Fast, platforming, while fighting.
Right. Yeah, I think that is a little bit difficult, like, because if you've ever been, like, fighting something and you got knocked off a platform, that might be one of the most rage-inducing things ever, like... you know.
So it's like maybe they tried to make their cake and eat it too.
Right, and you see that with the newer Sonic games. They're trying to kind of fix that, where they're like, okay, instead of putting, you know, fast and you know, platforming and battle all together, we'll do them each separate. And it's like, make up your damn mind, just be a game and like stick with it, you know?
Yeah. So in that case, should 3D Sonic even be a platformer then, if you wanted to maintain his aesthetic of being fast?
No, I mean, look, Sega can make a new IP and make it a platformer, right? They don't need to, you know, suck on Sonic's dick for... No, I mean, like, they don't need to use him for everything, right? And I think there's something in Sega's mind that says, if we dare to put out something that's not Sonic, that plays even remotely similar to how Sonic is supposed to play, everybody's gonna riot, because they're like, why didn't you, you know, use this popular IP that I love, right? Because I've had it since childhood. But I think if they want to maintain what Sonic is, just make every level like the city level in Sonic Adventure Battle 2. The one where you're just running through that city.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't really like Sonic games, but that was palatable, right?
That was probably their most solid level.
Right, because like you're running down the city, you can see, since you're downhill, you can see everything in front of you.
Right.
So you can like be like, okay, I want to hit that charger, and I'm gonna try to adjust myself to hit it now, right? But if you're gonna keep trying to do different things, then just separate them into different games, you know?
Yeah.
Not everything needs to be Sonic.
And there's something to be said about, again, about speed and processing information.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something to say. There's something to be said about environments when it's going by so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen so many screenshots of Sonic 06 that look gorgeous, but it's all rushing by so quickly.
As you're passing through clipping through the ground. But yeah, I'm like, and I mean, Sonic 06 is ugly a lot, but you're right, it's mostly when things are moving, and like the way that like a lot of the enemies act when you hit them or something looks like awkward and janky. But like if you were to freeze it, wow, they look like
this is epic.
Yeah, that's a cool design.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what they sold the marketing team on, was like, hey, look at these screenshots, and they're like, wow, those graphics are really good. Too bad that nothing else will work out.
Right, Sonic Boom. They tried to take
Sonic Boom.
Thank you. They tried to take away the speed element and replace it with platforming plus combat. It was not well received.
They separated the speed element.
There was no speed element.
What? In Sonic Boom?
Sonic Boom was not fast. If
Really?
I recall.
There weren't any like running along a track parts of it?
I don't remember it being particularly fast.
Because I remember there were a few. I remember the events never happening at the same time, and that was what I was kind of getting at, right? Like, there were some parts where you run along a track and do nothing interesting. There's other parts where you're like platforming, and then finally there's parts where you're battling. And then sometimes in the platforming you have to fight things, but they're not really enemies per se, more like just things.
Yeah, there were some. Yeah, they did separate. See? I remember when they were like chasing after Eggman or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, of course.
I feel like that should be the answer then. That you would think that would be the answer.
I don't see why you have to do it all. Why
just have one?
Yeah, just have one. You know what you are. Don't try to do everything just because you think you need to.
Okay.
Maybe.
And this is where the direction they took on Mario is just the most fascinating thing, because it's so creative.
It's so much better.
Like how the whole movement in Mario Sunshine.
And 64. Let's start out with 64.
Let's start simpler. Yeah. He has so many methods by which to go up and forward. Like he has the long jump, he has the dive, and he has the backflip, he has the wall kick. That's probably most of them.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of them can be used in conjunction and like off certain things to like modify how they, their properties.
And the best part is that a lot of these are optional. There's a lot of platforming that you can do just by basic jumping, but if you're good, if you're fast and you're good and you're smart and you're able to mechanically maneuver his utility, his kit basically, you're able to movement feels good is what I'm getting at, because you have the tool to make movement feel good.
Right.
And that's very interesting that they took pressing a button to jump and that's it, and moving left and right in the original Mario, to having this huge range of movement. And I think that was not a very easy decision to make.
No, that wasn't. And you know why it worked so much was, like I was saying with Sonic earlier, they gave Sonic a spin dash. The transition from 2D to 3D, they gave him a spin dash and called it a day. For Mario, they gave him like 40 different options and then made running around, fun, right? Even if you're not in a level, like if you're just running from one place to another, it's fun because you can do all this different stuff, right? And it feels good, and that's really important when you have a bigger environment like they started doing in 3D games.
And they've allowed it for there to be a balance between the average player that plays the game and those that are good.
Whereas Sonic kind of focused on the younger, the more casual player.
Right, because they wanted to appeal to a wider market.
Right.
But therefore, by appealing mainly to the casual audience, I believe the hardcore fans have sort of been left on the wayside more so.
Right.
Whereas with Mario, I think honestly it stood the test of time.
Everybody knows Mario. Everybody
Everyone.
knows Mario.
And well, for one, he's a very interestingly designed character.
Right, but also like his
It's
games
odd.
appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
And that's why everybody knows him, because anybody can play him.
He's managed to strike a balance between the hardcore fans that are really good at games in general and those that are just casually having fun with the games.
Mm-hmm.
Not that hardcore fans can't have fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was under the impression that they couldn't, but whatever.
But yeah, they gave Mario such a big kit that has allowed him to traverse the world in a number of ways, and you can be kind of creative with it too.
Mm-hmm.
And then shimmy on with Mario Sunshine. Give him a flood thing.
Right.
Which I kind of wish there was more, like, levels that implemented them more intensely. I don't know.
The flood itself?
Maybe it's been too long since I've played it.
Because there were a lot of freaking levels in that game, weren't there? Like,
yeah, like, okay, maybe there were some levels that
and I mean,
implemented it. Because, like, there's the rocket boost thing that, like, that gave you so much verticality, and that allowed for the world to be more vertical, which is very interesting.
Right.
And so, and you can, that means you can engage with them in some way. 'Cause, like, they would have, like, long ropes sort of strewn across towers and stuff that you could climb on after shooting up. Like, that was very interesting. They kept the sort of dive. They kept the backflip. I think they...
Yeah, but then they actually enhanced it because now you could dive onto, like, a watery thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I haven't played
you
much.
can spray water on the floor and you can dive onto it and you just fly.
Fly, right.
Yeah.
Which is like, you took something that's the best thing, a sequel, right? It's not really a sequel per se, but it's the game after,
yeah.
Mario 64. That's the best thing that it could have done. It takes what Mario 64 has learned, makes it look prettier, and then makes everything
give
in
more
it.
tools.
Yeah,
and such, and
give you
things,
more
gadgets
tools
to play with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once again, you don't have to use them. I mean, you can just stand around, spray, and then walk, and then stand around, spray.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also, go crazy with it. And they also allowed it so, like, a smart thing that they did was they transitioned from, like, the, like, level after level design to a, like, you can complete most of the levels if you want, or you can complete, like, the minimum number of levels and then fight the boss.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And not all the levels are the same, right? But if you're a completionist and you're really good at the game, maybe you want to do all the levels just to show you can.
Yeah. Maybe Sonic just needs more gadgets. Or, like, methods by which to traverse. You know? Because, like, maybe they
Because instead of gadgets, what Sonic did, and this is starting to, I think, become a theme with them, they took all the new methods of playing, and then they put them in separate characters. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's what they did with the gameplay itself. They took all the separate parts of gameplay and put them into different things.
Yeah, they did that with Silver's guy's own gameplay.
Right.
Like the Rob or whatever, the robot thing.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. He has a bird inside him or something, right? Maybe.
Oh,
All the little Dr. Robotnik robots.
What's with robots and birds? I'm thinking about Android 16 and his obsession with birds, I mean.
I don't think he cared about birds nearly as much in the actual show as he did in the bridge version. Which was funny, of course, because you just take a character, an interest, and then make it emphasize it like 400 times. But also,
Don't even get me started on Mario Odyssey.
Mario Odyssey?
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Talk about a
rehaul.
rehaul. No.
No.
But I've
hardly seen it. And of course they're like, I don't know, I think there's 999 moons in the game.
Yeah, it's an absurd amount. I watched Cryotic.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Of course.
There's so many collectibles. Some people are like, they're called moons, I believe.
Right, yeah. Because they used to have stars, and they went to shines, and then they went to stars, and then they went to stars, and they were like, screw it, we need something new, we need something brilliant. Moon.
Of course.
There's nothing else in space other than the moon.
But this is another game that he uses his hat to sort of traverse the world. He has his original utilities from Mario 64, but now has his hat to sort of engage with the world. And you can do things like he throws out his hat and he leaves it floating there, and he can jump on the hat and then go up. So
really?
He bounces off of it.
Okay,
so
that's cool.
So now he basically has a spring wherever he goes, and that's like very exciting. And
that is cool. It's like taking the platforming and being like, now you can make a platform.
Yeah.
I don't know how big the hitbox on the cap is though, because that could be annoying trying to precision jump onto a hat.
Yeah, I believe you can actually dive onto it so that you can have more forward momentum as well.
That's cool.
So it's like.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, you can like use the cap to like possess other things or something.
So. This might be a little bit of a spoiler. I hope it's not too much.
Whatever.
There's this bird creature that you can possess, and it like sticks out its nose and like stabs. So there's a point. So there would be like big walls, and once he possesses
do you like throw it like a dart into the wall and then climb on top of it?
Yeah, he stabs his nose and he flings himself like.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I remember Cry was like, "This is amazing." Because this would be like a phone game, and this would be the whole mechanic. But this is just a part of Mario Odyssey.
Right.
Which is a humongous game. And there's a lot of these little sort of... It might as well be a mini game of sorts. Just in the environment, but it feels natural.
But if it doesn't feel like a mini game, that's the important thing. Because you can't make it feel like... You gotta make it feel like, oh, I've been jumping, and now I know, how to jump really well. And this is kind of an extension of that. And it doesn't feel like so far removed from my jumping.
It's not too gimmicky. It's
that it feels like I'm just like going into a separate screen and playing Mario Party or something.
Yeah. And it's like, who came up with that? Possession? What?
Yeah, I like how they can make at Nintendo. They can make anything that's really fucking disturbing and make it be like, look it, I possessed that guy.
And
cool.
This still blows my mind because Sonic 06 did not do this well.
Oh really?
So we understand that there's like people in Sonic 06. They're like normal human beings.
They're very definitely definitely people in Sonic 06.
And they aren't very interesting.
And sometimes they're the love interest for some reason.
They aren't very interesting because they all look like stock.
And they have the same rolling their hands around.
Yeah.
Animation. Yeah.
Mario Odyssey has people, and they are very They're very engaging. With their movement and what they're doing. Like some of them are playing drums on the street, playing guitar, and some of them are just like sitting on benches and they're like moving and such. But how Mario can interact with them, obviously by talking, but also he can jump on their heads. And it's like, you didn't need to do that, but that means they've become sort of another part of the environment. The people you can engage with besides just talking. Jumping on their heads is funny and exciting, and they've managed to make.
And I'm glad they didn't go the direction where he totally would have done what he does to Goombas and just crushed the shit out of them.
Yeah, he just bounces.
Because realize that was an option. That was an option. He could have stepped on their heads and then they disappear from
the city.
Yeah.
But they managed to make the people not feel weird. They made the stock characters of this game interesting. And
I think I'll give Sonic Team a little leeway with this, because it is fair that, Mario is a human, right? From what we can tell, right?
Right.
And Sonic is a hedgehog who lives in a world with a bunch of other animals that look kind of vaguely like humans.
Right.
Right? And until Sonic 06, there was no, and then Sonic X, the show Sonic X, I guess. There was no indication really that Sonic was in the human world. Oh, Eggman, never mind. But even Eggman's a weird version. Yeah, he's a cartoony version of a human. So I feel and I think the humans in Mario Odyssey, they look human-like, but they're not they're not trying to get as realistic as they did in Sonic 06.
Maybe you haven't seen them recently.
The Sonic 06 humans looked pretty, realistic, but I'm sure the ones in Odyssey had,
Oh yeah, they looked like actual people.
Yeah, a little bit. Their noses are kind of big though. I mean,
yeah, they
yeah,
very much
they
so.
do look kind of like people from the freaking 20s for some
I was
reason.
gonna say they went with the 1920s vibe
Yeah.
because it's like the most exciting.
Yeah.
For
I hope you all know that you can't drink alcohol or else that's illegal.
yeah, to make sure no one forgot about.
But yeah, I mean,
1920s.
I don't know. It also helps that this is made a little later on, right? So, you know,
That's Grand Theft Auto.
But it does help that this is made a little bit later on, so they had a little bit better graphics.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, I feel like the style still is like.
Oh boy, she never came back.
Oh.
See, this is why the Nintendo verse has managed to make, or the Mario verse or whatever, has managed to make use of almost every character they've introduced at some point. I don't think that character's coming back. I don't think Elise is coming back.
Right, like you do mention that, yeah. It's like Pauline's back from the original one, and like I guess.
And that was like a very like Daisy came back.
Daisy came back. Oh, the princess from Sarastro.
Yeah, it's like they didn't have to do that. It's like, but they wanted to continue the lore or whatever, or some sort of level of consistency.
Right.
Between the worlds, and they did that. Just Nintendo has what's the word? It's not sheen. And
it's more polished, yeah.
That's the word. It's
they put more polish on it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just Nintendo's got it together.
Yeah, they do. I am impressed with Nintendo's track record, but yeah. So I think that's the main differences between Mario and Sonic. Mainly is that Nintendo they put a lot more polish into their games, right?
Yeah, and
I think they talk to someone before they throw the game out onto the market. That might help. Like, hey, does this look like a good game? They're like, actually, no.
And they're okay with delaying games.
Well, they are for Metroid 4. I don't know if that's a thing throughout Nintendo. I hope it is.
I think it is.
I hope it is because
I don't know what director said. Like, a bad game lasts forever, and a delayed game takes a little bit longer.
Right. A delayed game, is a decent game, at least decent, that will come out a little bit later. But a bad game is a bad game.
It's forever.
Yeah, which that's right. I mean, he's right, right? You'll live to see the next Metroid. Just let him take a little bit longer. Yeah. But I don't know if the rest of the company agrees with that, right? Because they've had a history of releasing games way like making their teams work way too quickly on games. Say for like Majora's Mask. Now that turned out fortunately pretty good, right? Some people can disagree, but that turned out. It was received pretty well.
Considering it's time restrained and everything.
Right. Especially considering that. It should have been awful, really. But...
They worked under pressure somehow.
But they should have maybe gave them a bit more time, right? Deadlines are fine, but, don't...
Make them humanly reasonable.
Yeah.
Or
I think that's a problem with Japan, though, in terms of their working.
Like, if we look at Masahiro Sakurai, like, the man's lost so much weight.
Yeah, that... Somebody needs to tell him no. It's like Nintendo's like, okay, we're releasing a new console, and you know what that means, Sakurai, come back. And then he's like, no. Stop. Get someone else to work on it.
Someone get this man a decent meal.
Seriously. Someone should tell him about weekends and what they mean. Like, really? Those?
You can take breaks?
You're allowed to do that? Really?
But yeah, Japan's nuts in terms of their work ethic, and it's so...
I
think
honestly
it's toxic.
disagree with everything.
I think it's toxic.
Yeah, I highly disagree with most of their practices.
I honestly think that sort of working culture is the reason why the suicide rate's so high.
Oh, of course.
Part of it.
I would say a lot of it. I'd say it's a very high reason. And then they have other problems too, but yeah, their work whole situation there is
insane. It's insane.
I'm not saying we're perfect in America, but I'm saying I'd rather have what we have in America than what they have, to be honest. So that's that. What are we?
Alright, no more Sonic.
Yeah, no more
I
Sonic.
promise no Sonic movie, no.
Mm-hmm, yeah. We should just make the thumbnail that. Just like.
His gross feet.
Ew. Ew. Oh, I didn't even see his feet in the trailer. Oh no, it's because he's wearing shoes, obviously. Duh. Yeah. Which are also actually pretty gross, but whatever. I expect them to be like plastic, like bulgy things. But whatever, we're not talking about Sonic.
This is a short clip. I'm not gonna talk about this too long.
Alright.
But there's this piece my composition professor showed me. And everything's handwritten and you can watch the score. I'll try to find it, but maybe I'll do this after it.
Watch.
I'll show an image of the piece in post.
Yeah, good old editing, Joe, saving our asses.
But this piece is avant-garde and it's like very odd, and the way
you're writing it?
Someone else wrote it, and it's already on YouTube. And
okay.
It's all handwritten score, and the instrumentation's really weird. But the beginning requires sandpaper, and for you to shuffle it at, I think it's quadruple piano or something, and like I remember we were in a class and we were all like listening to it intensely, and I think Dr. Grant was like, "Shh, I can't hear the sandpaper."
where everybody's silent and he's like, "Shh."
Like we were like talking very quietly. It's like, "Shh."
That's awesome. I love people who do the old 1812 where they just decide something that is clearly not an instrument is now an instrument. Like, hey, I want to put cannons in our song. Oh, what do you mean? Like, I want to use them as the instrument.
I need this timbre and sound.
Sir, that will cost way too much money. Do it.
I don't know.
And now sandpaper. I like it.
There's something to be said about like people that love their art that much, where they have to respect something as odd as that, and it be unironic, for him to be like.
Yeah, I remember one time a similar situation happened where our English. So I was in like sort of advanced, like it was called Leap, right? And it was sort of advanced, and in middle school we had like one class that was dedicated to be the Leap class, and it was just slightly like a little bit like barely harder version, and honestly it might have been easier just because we did like more nonsense in it than actual like reading books and that kind of thing. We still did the normal English stuff, but
right.
But one of the things one of my teachers did was she read off a poem, and before she read it, she was like, "You all need to be quiet for this because this is so powerful and means so much that if you talk during it, it is disrespecting this art."
Wow.
Yeah. And like that was the preface to it, and I was like,
"That's
wow.
Honestly kind of respect. I respect that actually."
Because I didn't necessarily agree with everything the teacher said and did, but I found it interesting for sure.
Because that says something about how much they care about that work in the first place. Because they wouldn't be like that otherwise. You know?
Right.
And that sort of dedication, I think, like you have to respect that. Like, it's their work and it's their passion or whatever.
And it definitely sets a precedence for like whatever she was reading, like the poem she was reading was like, wow, like because normally you go into a poem and you're like you read it first and you're like, okay, what's the base level stuff I got from this, and then you have to read it again and you're like, okay, I think I'm starting to pick up what the kind of idea is here, and you read it a few more times and you're like, okay, I think this is what it's trying to say. For that, it's like immediately like don't even like focus on the base level stuff, like try to look deeper into it, and like there is something in here, right? And if she thinks it's that big, then it'll be that big, when you read it. But yeah, so there is it is interesting that some art can like even get that to happen, like
that sort of intensity to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just the people who are fans of the art, or like or if it's like just in general people, can feel that way about it.
That's all I had about that. So I just thought it was such an interesting exchange.
Yeah. All right.
That was the majority of the things I wanted to talk about.
All right.
I had a big list, but it's like these aren't the most interesting. I have.
We'll make it interesting, Joe. We'll make it interesting.
Do you really want to talk about chess?
Yes. Let's talk about freaking
I'm gonna
chess.
talk about chess.
Let's talk about chess, Joe.
I actually love undo as an option. I hate.
You do like undo?
I love undo because it's like.
I don't know if I agree with that.
That's fine.
We'll talk about it.
The reason why I like undo is because it's like you can make the most stupidest of mistakes. I left my queen next to a pawn. Oh, and the pawn killed my queen. I'm an idiot for putting the queen there.
Yeah.
May I undo it because that was
clearly
a foolish thing to do, and it was very obvious. I don't think that's very interesting to lose to that. Even though you could be like, well, that's your fault for making that mistake, but I think what makes chess engaging is when you can trap your opponent in more than one move. Because if someone just like, oh, I didn't notice that, it's not very interesting. What's interesting is when you can completely outmaneuver your enemy in a number amount of turns. And I think that's what makes it so engaging. It's the mind game of that, as opposed to lol, oops.
Well, here's the thing. I'm sure the amount of mistakes goes down the better and better you get at chess, right?
Right.
But I think a majority of chess, it's all like a mind game, right? So you have to think when what you're doing through before you do it.
Right.
If the opponent sets up a kind of situation to where you think you can exploit a weakness and you move your chess piece there to exploit that weakness, and it turns out you made some really stupid dumb mistake that you obviously, if you looked at it another second, you would have been able to figure it out. That's why you're given the time to think of your move before you do it. That's why, because you're supposed to think of all the possibilities. You're supposed to think about what you're doing, what could attack you, what your space you're leaving open when you leave that space.
Right. And I understand that if you're very competitive, but we're just casuals.
Right.
It's
and
like,
okay, that's different. I thought you were playing like, to see, who's got the better skill. You're not doing it for, a lot of fun, right?
I mean, like, you and I aren't like professional chess players. We're gonna play it for fun.
Damn straight.
Like, we're just gonna have fun with it because we like the whole interaction between both of us. It's an exchange of minds,
right?
Because if you lose, it's all your fault.
Right, because it's an entirely skill-based game.
And I like the leeway of like, oh, oops, I just did that. Can I take it back? And if I don't like multiple takebacks,
right?
I like one.
And you can't say, oh, I take that move back after, You
can't take two moves back.
No,
I'm okay with doing a lot of takebacks.
But what if, you move your queen there, and I had a sneaky thing hitting it in the corner, and it takes out your queen, and, you never saw it, and, it could have been a dumb mistake, but,
Oh, you mean,
I kind of
if you took it and I didn't notice you took it, and we just kept playing?
No. I mean, if you moved your thing there...
Move my thing here.
To a space, right? And then I had something set up there that was meant to take that. And I took your piece, and you were like, oh, well, I want to undo that.
Well...
Because it's hard to tell the difference between, oh, I didn't see that, and, oh, that was, a strategy to draw my attention away. Because that's part of the game, right?
I suppose so, but I think I'm okay with that sort of sacrifice. Because if the trap is... I'm trying to lure you into this spot so I can just take your queen.
But there's also traps where you try to lure attention away from a certain part of the board.
I don't know. I just think that's kind of...
You don't think that's what chess is about?
I think it's kind of elementary. I think it's more about elaborate plans than something as simple as... Because I actually do this. I look at a different part of the board...
Than the one you're gonna take.
So I look at somewhere that I don't want them to look
at. It's poker, man.
I don't like that. I don't know. I just don't think that's the most interesting.
I think it's part of the game.
It certainly is. But as a casual,
right?
I like undos because you can play out a very complex game, and without it just ending because you made one mistake. That was as simple as I moved my queen to a pawn.
Right, and it's annoying when that mistake happens. And I think saying it in the context of a casual game is a lot different than saying it in like general.
Because like, I love the idea of like you have your I almost said servant because I've been playing FGO too much. If your piece is threatening 2 pieces and you can only save one of them,
you have to choose one.
I love that. Because that means you did something to set that up, and no undo is going to fix that.
Right.
Like that's the tasty meat of chess.
Tasty.
And that's why I like undos.
All right.
And I'm a casual. Like I'll admit it.
No, I mean, I think in a lot more casual matches, especially with friends, undos are
right. Multiple casuals. Multiple undos.
Multi-casual.
Multiple undos. No. Like 1 per turn is the most I'll do. 1 per turn.
What do you mean? That's the most. Oh.
Not like 2 undos consecutively.
Oh, you mean moving one and then being like, oh wait, I undo that, and then moving it again. And you're like, oh wait, I undo that. I thought because 1 per turn's like generous, right? Like every turn, someone moves and they're like, shit, wait, let me take that.
I'm okay with that.
Really?
I'm okay with that because it's like, again, it's about trapping the opponent. Like if they cannot find a safe place to move their piece.
That's the way you've played the game, and the way they've played the game led to that point, and they deserve it.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, that's. I mean, not everyone likes that. Like some people like the pristine style of play where once you let go of that piece, that's where that piece is.
Right. That's where it's staying. And that's kind of how I play the game usually.
That's the kind of play of like perfection. Mm-hmm. It's like. My issue with this is it takes too long. and when it comes down to it,
chess is a long game.
When it comes down to it, like if I really wanted to be like super duper engaged into the game, it takes a long time for me to think through what are the consequences of this single move. Mm-hmm. That's like I'm okay with thinking a little bit less and having that undo because. I think a little bit less because I have the undo, but I still have to think a little bit more about setting up the trap, as opposed to doing a simple trap as like, let me just lure them here.
Right. Like, do you happen to know the chess capital of the world?
No.
There is a chess capital of the world. Do you know what city it is?
Is it Germany?
It's in America.
It's in America?
Yeah.
New York?
Nope. St. Louis.
Really?
Yeah.
What the heck?
Right? And do you know that there's a chess museum there too? Yeah, I've been to that chess museum.
Wow.
They have a giant chessboard outside of it. So me and the guy I went with played giant chess on that chessboard.
Yo,
they come up to your hip or something. Yeah, and then they have a museum full of chess from all different
that's great.
areas of the world and that kind of thing.
Wow.
And a lot of avant-garde chess things where it's there was a chessboard where it was glass, right, mirrors and all that, and the chess pieces were wine glasses full of the color that you were, and if you killed someone, right, you got to drink the blood of the enemy, right?
It's so fun.
And it was white versus red wine.
That's incredible. I love it.
Right?
I love it.
Yeah.
We should go.
We should go sometime. But I can't remember the reason why St. Louis is the chess capital of the world. I just know.
Was someone born here and was just one of the best chess players?
I think we played. There's a lot of, probably more than one, but I think a lot of the championships kind of are around this area and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. A lot of the schools have chess teams, whereas some schools don't really bother with that kind of thing. But yeah.
Have you played? What is it called? It's not reverse chess. I'm not going to call it that. I don't know what its title is, but it's basically where you're trying to get rid of all your pieces. So you're intentionally killing them. Have you played that before?
But then if you're the opponent, you never take it.
So here's the thing: if you can take a piece, you have to take it.
No, I've never played that before. It is
so much fun. I think I have a chessboard. We can play it after this. It's so much fun. I think it's the most popular iteration of chess besides the original chess.
Right.
It's so much fun because like
funny.
you can do really long strings of people just killing themselves.
Yeah. Where you have to just keep taking.
It's so great.
That's awesome.
We gotta do that. But yeah, I can't believe we just talked about chess.
Dude, chess is great. I don't know why you're so reticent about it.
It's just like there's a stigma behind chess. It's like, oh, I'm in the chess club.
I'm a nerd. I never played chess. I play a game that involves skill and brains. I must be a freaking outcast. How weird is that? No, I think it's important. I think I'm surprised whenever I meet someone who doesn't know how to play chess.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
Me
I'm
too.
like, they're like, yeah, I haven't learned, like, they haven't learned how to ride a bike or something, right?
Yeah.
It's like, really? You never had the chance. It's like really short, Yeah. I could just teach you right here, but. Yeah.
I remember Miss Kornfeld didn't know how to play chess, and I tried teaching her. She's from 5th grade. Or I was in 5th grade, and she was a teacher. Oh, man. She was the blonde teacher. I don't know if you know.
Okay, so not the, like, Hawaiian one?
Yeah, no, not her.
Okay.
But yeah, I taught her.
Did you?
Yeah, it's really funny.
Did you kick her ass? This is the real world, Miss Cornfeld! Like, checkmate!
I'm still pissed about this. In elementary school, I got beat by, I think I was in 3rd grade, and I got beat by a 5th grader because he made up the rule that queens could do every rule, and that the queen could move like a knight. And that's how he checkmated me. Because he said the queen could move like a knight. I'm pissed. That's
not okay. That's not okay.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, that is some kind of fucked up. Jeez.
It's really funny.
Yeah.
It's been 19 years.
Dude, I was playing chess with my roommates last semester. Some of the section mates rather, and so we are all kind of under the impression that we're noobs, right? So I go into it, and we're playing, and I get to the point where a lot of what I like to do is I like to make it so that none of my pieces can be taken, even if it's like a pawn, without another piece being able to take them. And they're like, wait, I can't do anything. And it's like, yes. And he actually got scared, and he was like, I don't want to play against you anymore, man.
This man's a threat.
And I never got to play against him again because
you inserted the fear factor into this man.
I think I did that thing that scammers do where they act like they're really bad players and then they just own you, right?
Very clever.
But yeah, I think he thought
it's pretty funny
that I was doing that, and I was like, no, I actually don't think I'm that good at the game.
I just noticed how bad you are.
Damn. You play for fun? Sounds like
what an idiot.
He was weak. He deserved to die.
Oh, this is hardcore.
Right.
I swear that's all my topics.
No, we gotta do. There's one more. There's one last topic. Joe has that last topic. He's gonna be able to tell you. What is this topic, Joe?
Damn it, how did you know?
All the people are counting on you.
There's not much to talk. I don't know.
You think there's not much to talk about, but we'll find a way.
I'm not even sure where I was gonna go with this, but I wrote standards for games today versus in the past. I'm not sure where I wanted to go with this.
So in the past, if the game didn't ruin your console, it was good. But now,
the issue with this topic is that it's so broad. I don't even know. I should have written down a specific example of what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it might have been trying to talk about how a lot of games today are trying to appeal to what's the feeling of
nostalgia?
Yeah, a lot of games are appealing to nostalgia,
mm-hmm.
and therefore aren't really doing their own thing. They aren't as unique as you want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much more I wanted to say about that.
Well, I mean, I do want to mention that. So I when I play older games, I'm surprised by the lack of content. So I do think that these days there's a lot more content in games, and I'll give games today credit for that because there's just so much to do. Whereas in the past, games wouldn't have that much content in them because there was just not enough to put in there, right? But I gotta imagine, like, that's probably a lot more work for people today, right?
Yeah.
But to be fair, in the past, you know, they had to pave their kind of own story.
Right.
Like, there was no precedent for, like...
Right, they had no thing to look back on as an example of,
right.
oh, this is how this is made.
Or even if it was good or not, right? So they just had to implement things and hope that people would like it, right?
Yeah, so
Whereas
maybe
now,
there was more innovation back then. Maybe.
I think there was, or at least invention. I'll go with invention. Because they didn't have anything to innovate from, right? They just invented things. And now we require innovation. Because everything's kind of there, right? There's not a lot of...
Right, we're kind of copying each other.
Right, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? And you can make something seem original even if it takes a lot from everything else.
Yeah. Being original is hard. It's very hard, especially when something's been around. So this is a whole other thing. Like, games have not been around for that long. Neither are movies, you know?
Movies?
Like movies and animation and film, like...
I mean, animation especially, but yeah.
But, like, there have been instances of the idea of, like, pictures in motion for like, since the beginning of man on cave walls.
Right, and,
of, like,
and
animals
then, I mean, even the Greeks and that had plays,
so it's like,
which are, like, movie-esque stories, right?
So it's like, maybe we've only scratched the surface, you know? Like, we haven't even lived that long in the 21st century.
Right.
We're on the cusp of technology, I think. And it isn't clear to me what... I still think VR is the future, and I think it's going to get a lot more engaging and interesting.
Yeah, I think they have a ways to go, but I do think they'll be able to, you know, make it. I don't think it'll be a dud.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm gonna call it here yet.
Yeah, we might be able to call it here. Thanks for tuning in to Ganch Brothers Incorporated.
Skin between the balls and butthole podcast.
That's gross, Joe. I can't believe it.
Alright, let's get out of here.
Right.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.